10 standing by.
Red 7 standing by.
Red 3 standing by.
Red 6 standing by.
Red 9 standing by.
Red 2 standing by.
Red 11 standing by.
Red 5 standing by.
Welcome to another exciting edition of The Rational Male. There you go. Much better. Now I can hear myself. I know you're watching too. Who said I should kneel like Vegeta? Uh-oh. Yeah. Live from Las Vegas, Nevada, this is the Rational Man. Welcome. Oh boy. Where are we going to start today? Oh, I know where we should start today. Hold on.
Tell these bitches to go to hell.
All right. I have to do this because we have to buff my good friend Mo out today. So y'all know. Just so y'all know.
What you all just saw was not a mistake. It is not something. No, your eyes are not deceiving you. Yes, my official merch store is available right now. So please, if you want to support, this is the best way to support Big Mo. Just click the link right here.
There you go. See, I buff my friends out.
Contrast the two campaigns here. On the right, you have Hulk Hogan and, the UFC, and a version of masculinity where you're very straightforward and candid and say what everyone's thinking and you risk offending people. And I think that version of masculinity worked in 2016 where people felt for 30 or 40 years the establishment had just been lying to them and giving them a bunch of blah blah to make them feel good in the short run and wasn't being honest with them. The type of masculinity now and the type of masculinity that is really resonating is walls. This is what we want from men. We want a guy who can coach football, who protects his nation for 24 years. His instincts as a man are to protect and be empathetic and to be gentle and to be understanding.
Oh, yeah. Yes. A kinder, gentler masculinity.
Of Gen Z men no longer actively even trying to date. They're not even trying. And so the question is, well, why is that happening for women? Women, first off, are dating older. They want more economically and emotionally viable men, and that usually means older men. In addition, when young women are lonely, they have much better social networks. They have much stronger friend networks, whereas guys become kind of lone wolves and kind of literally sequester from everyone and everything.
Today are more successful than ever. They're more professionally successful. They're more financially independent. Women get more college degrees and graduate degrees than men do. There's even some data that over 50% of business startups are done by women. There are a lot of resources now for women in the corporate world, in the world of tech. When it comes to building a career, it's the best time in history to be a woman. However, as women become more successful, the dating pool of acceptable men significantly shrinks. This is an uncomfortable truth to talk about, but women are hardwired to be attracted to men who are in the same socioeconomic status or higher. So as we are now living in this modern era where women are more successful than ever, you see a lot of these women surpassing men educationally, professionally, financially. So that means that the dating pool available to these women is smaller and smaller and smaller. It is what it is. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. It is what it is.
3 women under the age of 30 have a boyfriend. Only 1 in 3 men. Why? Because women are dating older. 24-year-old women are dating a 38-year-old guy. So the young guy has no options because any kind of high status or remotely, shit together woman is going older.
If you are a woman who is capable and competent and can do all those things on your own, they don't want a man.
My advice to men is simply put, get your shit together, get out, start making money. The truth is, if we're going to have an honest conversation around mating, women mate socioeconomically, horizontally and up.
You got to be like Walls, though. You can't be like Trump. You can get out and get your shit together, but be like Walls.
Up, then horizontally and down. And when the pool of horizontal and up among men keeps shrinking because women are doing better, which, by the way, is a great thing. We should do nothing to do that. But the reality is, I don't care how many subscriptions to The Atlantic you have or how much you read the New York Times. Women want a man. And their view of a man is that he makes as much or more money than me.
I feel like I just took a bath in battery acid.
On with women these days? We used to be a lot happier than men, and now we're not. What happened?
What you've found is that over the past 20 years or so, women have converged downward to the unhappiness levels of men. And at first I thought, great, men are getting happier. Women are getting unhappier. That's what we find. And they're getting unhappier very quickly. And so there's a lot of different theories of it. You find that there's a lot less family formation going on. There's a lot less marriage. You find that men and women are diverging politically really, really quickly. You find that women are getting much more politically progressive and men are getting more conservative. And so the result of it is that, especially in a culture where people think that the most important thing for making a romantic match is voting for the same party idiotically, social media is especially targeted at young women. It's creating a whole lot of misery with social comparison, with political hatred, with the sense of loneliness that's crawling out of people's smartphones. And all these things together are creating an epidemic of unhappiness among women, especially young women.
Come full
Wait, there.
What happens is when they're young, they'll choose a compatible partner, like around the same age, same kind of social economic status, whatever. Then they might get money. Then they realize how annoying being married is. So they, usually get divorced. Then they just want to party and they want that 23-year-old Swedish model and they want to enjoy their life. But then they realize how vacuous that is when their back starts hurting and she could care less. And he's sick and she's nowhere to be found. And so then what happens is they almost get re-traumatized and then recalibrate back to normal. And then they start seeking more emotional intimacy. And then they want a woman who's around the same age, who's not using them and will be there when, they have a doctor's appointment. Because doctor's appointments get more frequent when a man gets older.
All right, I got to give you the build up for this one. I don't know if it was because he spent a week in Vegas, but man, Orion Taraban has gone full gangsta.
And the way this is done, at least among many content creators online, is by making women feel right. The creators who can make women feel right are the gendered equivalents of the creators who make men feel angry. And while I'm not going to name any names, there are many creators online who do this very, very well. Though they may not be exhibiting a high degree of integrity, they are clearly savvy businessmen. And some of these creators, especially the men who do this, are making a metric shit ton of money off these women by telling them exactly the fuck they want to hear. And the ones who do this the best are actually very attractive. Like they tend to be good looking men. They work out, they dress nice, they talk sweet. And this, of course, is an important component of reproduction. After all, the part that women always leave out is that they want all the things they want from the men they are attracted to. Without that attraction, they are much less interested. And these men are extremely good at reflecting back to women what they already feel and believe, which is generally what women want to hear when they go to their friends or their therapists or their boyfriends for advice. That is, they want to hear that they're right and that the problem lies elsewhere. Between the attractiveness and the reflection, these men are functionally romance novel protagonists. They look how women want them to look and they say what women want them to say.
Gangsta as
if you appreciate the
I feel like I just took a bath in battery acid.
Oh, okay. Now, I'm just going to say before I put this one up there, somebody got some splaining to do.
He promised to be my boyfriend and date me. And he then asked me if I could do some work for his show. He has a podcast. And I did hundreds of hours of work for him all summer. Late August came where we were going to have this big, exciting meeting. This was going to be my first date. First handhold, first kiss, first everything. It was going to be super exciting. And he found a reason to end things with me because I asked if we could have a phone call. And he was telling me, you are the most nagging person. You're quarrelsome. And he threw Proverbs 21:19 in my face. And then I was doing a lot to just working for this guy. And
Britt. So you get taken advantage of by a complete and absolute scumbag.
Yeah.
And let's forget the money and the hours part. He robbed you and took advantage of you. But beneath that, he promised you something you've wanted for a long time, which is connection, right?
Yeah.
Which is physical intimacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he absolutely sucks.
God wants you to have the baby.
Definitely not.
That's my favorite sound drop. Sorry, Fresh, but I love you. Guys, I love you. Hey, how's it going? Wow. Yeah, I'll let you guys take those as you. I'm not gonna name names, but You guys can name the names. Yeah. I thought so. Well, welcome. We're back here again. Once again, I have producer Kyle in the house over there. Hey.
What's up?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if happy would be the word I'd use, but if there's something approaching that, then yes, for sure. Yeah, you like the new shirt? I got some new shirts, and I thought, wait, go to the bicep cam. Where's the bicep cam? There's a bicep cam. Hold on. So I can do one of these because it's freezing my dick off in here. No, it's fine. We're okay. I'll get my nipples going up here for you. Oh man, yeah. So I have a few. I got a few little announcements to talk about. I was unfortunately under the weather on Friday, and I was not able to get to the bikini contest. But that's okay. There's lots more coming up very soon. I think there's one on on Labor Day. So be doing that one. Am I gleeful? Yeah, maybe I am a little today. Maybe just a smidge. Yeah, I tell you, sometimes all you have to do is just let mediocre people be mediocre, and then you outshine them, right? I mean, it's not that you're like sometimes people who aren't really superstars, they're just outshine everybody else just because they just waited long enough. Sometimes I feel like that's me. Yeah. So, and thank you very much. I work. You know what, Ace? I'll put that up there. Thank you. I worked very hard for this. Just ask Hide Yamagishi and Alvaro Pena. Oh boy. So we had Myron was in here on Thursday. So we did not have an Access Vegas, but I kind of did a little bit of a makeup one for you guys. I did about what God was 3.5 hours with
Myron.
With Myron, and Kyle was in here for 13 hours straight because he was doing other stuff as well. So big ups to Mr.
I can pop up the camera now.
There you go. Pop into the camera. There he is. That's him right there. Yeah. So, yeah. So, you guys are probably wondering why I decided to do solipsism today. I haven't talked solipsism in quite some time. I wanted to get into it a little bit because I think we briefly touched on it when I was talking with Myron over on Thursday. And of course, so the usual suspects like to pop into the chat or like to pop onto my Twitter and want to point out the fact that there's no studies that prove, no empirical surveys, no research studies that prove that women are in fact solipsistic. Well, yeah, and you're unlikely to ever find those studies because no woman in her right mind is going to say, "Are you a selfish cunt?" And strongly agree, somewhat agree. Disagree. You're not gonna that's not gonna happen. And that got me to thinking about a couple of things here too. Is I started thinking about this, and I think that a lot of the times whenever we get sort of like backed into a corner here with stats and figures and statistics and everything, it reminded me of the fact that there's different ways to do different kinds of research. And again, I think a lot of people want to believe, you know what the fuck, I'll put this on there right now. Thank you very much. There you go. There you go. For only €5, you got the Don DeMarco. But yeah, 40K references go to the front of the class immediately. No, I was thinking about this and I thought, you know what? I think we're kind of overly dependent, or maybe we want to defer to authority, which is a logical fallacy, by the way. And usually that logical fallacy ends up being, sort of an appeal to authority. And there's lots of different logical fallacies. And I think that when you start mentioning logical fallacies today, most people don't know what logical fallacies are. Maybe they've heard of straw manning or ad hominem attacks. Like, you're just calling me names, bro. They're less likely to understand like what a tu quoque is, which is basically, it's just argumentation to argue, right? It's just you answer an argument with an argument, right? Or answer criticism with criticism. Then there's, Texas sharpshooter. Then there's, one of those is, of course, an appeal to various appeal to popularity, right? Just because the mass, everybody else thinks this doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually true. So, or the one that I always get thrown at, and quite recently is they argue the man and not the actual point. And so when I was doing that ill-advised quote unquote debate with Alex from Playing with Fire. That's really what all that entire conversation, it was like 3.5 hours of just this constant back and forth of you lied, you lied, you lied, you lied, tell everyone that you lied, right? That's all it was. There was no debate, there was no topics to be discussed, nothing like that. But the reason why is because it was one exercise of 3.5 hour exercise in a logical fallacy, which is argue the man and not the points. And so there's no actual points to be had because the topics were never the topics. It was only the topics were how they related to me. And so we weren't actually talking about things like the wall. We weren't actually talking about things like Iron Rule of Tomasi #2. It was just like, here's how you lied. That's all it was. And that is essentially arguing the man and not arguing the points. And so that's, if anybody who's ever done sort of classical debate or any kind of had a class in just, logic 101 understands this stuff, unless you're, autistic like Alex from Playing with Fire. Or like Not So Erudite, who, by the way, yes, you can stop sending me those videos now. Yes, I've seen her in her cosplay outfit, and I know she is whack beyond whack. So anything that comes out of this poor child's mouth is suspect no matter what. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, I wanted to get into solipsism today because, of course, I was discussing this with Myron, and of course, everybody wants to say, "Well, where's the proof that women are actually solipsistic?" And you have to understand what solipsism is in the first place, because when I was discussing solipsism as far back as 2015 on the Rational Male, and I think a couple of those essays made it into, I want to say they made it into my second book, which was Preventative Medicine. What exactly solipsism is and how it sort of functions as a dynamic rather than a philosophy. Because if you go and you look up in fact, we could just go do that right now. We can just go look up solipsism. Let's do this real quick. Because solipsism is a lot of different, if you look at the dictionary, I'm just reading this off of Google right now. Solipsism, the quality of being very self-centered or selfish. Okay, that's a rough bonehead bumper sticker side. Now, the philosophical side is the view that, or the theory that the self is all that can be known to exist. Therefore, anything like sort of outside of the person is an NPC, or you're the main character in the movie of you, and the people who exist outside, people and the things and objects are just simply either obstacles or props, more or less. So there's more to it than that. So I'm going to go through here and just read the wiki. This is from Wikipedia. I take that with a grain of salt, but it's good for definitions here. Solipsism, from the Latin, solus, meaning alone, and ips, self. Okay, so alone self, right? Is the philosophical idea that only one's mind is sure to exist. I think, therefore I am, right? Descartes. As an epistemological position, solipsism holds that knowledge of anything outside of one's own mind is unsure, and the external world and other minds cannot be known and might not exist outside of the mind. Now, that's the philosophical side of things. There's also a metaphysical side, there's a methodological side, and really the methodological side is really what I sort of focused on a little bit more when I was writing. I wrote 2 essays on this, Solipsism 1 and Solipsism 2. And the reason why I was sort of coming to this conclusion, I suppose, with respect to women, is that women are innately, naturally solipsists. And of course, women lost their shit when I said this. Right now, I didn't mean this in sort of as an invective. I wasn't saying this as some sort of oh, all women are just selfish bitches, right? No, that's not what I meant. That's why I mean, if that's what I meant, I would have just said that, right? I would have just said, oh, well, all women are just selfless, self-important creatures, and that's, guys have to deal with that. That's the reason why I use solipsism, is because it's a much more accurate term, I think, for the dynamic that I was describing at the time. And I'll read a few passages and just a few paragraphs from Solipsism 1 and Solipsism 2, so you guys get a better idea. But solipsism, as far as the female psyche is concerned, is that things, and I think a lot of guys really understand this, we prioritize women above everything else, and to the point where guys say, well, you shouldn't pedestalize a woman. I mean, taken to its logical extreme, the reflection or the association of female solipsism manifests in men just as much as it does in women. And when we talk about a gynocentric social order, when we talk about how the importance of women is I think a driver for most guys, like for instance, I'm going to throw this one back up here really quick because I mean, I thought this was, maybe it's not as egregious as I thought it was, but it's pretty bad.
Contrast the two campaigns here. On the right, you have Hulk Hogan and, the UFC, and a version of masculinity where you're very straightforward and candid and say what everyone's thinking and you risk offending people. And
okay, so this is conventional masculinity, right? Everything else that, what a great screen cap that is. Everything else that Scott Galloway gets into is this mealy mouth, wishy-washy, man bun, feminized version of masculinity. Now he's basically talking about two different sides of masculinity here. But he's not. One of these is masculine, is conventionally masculine, and the other is conventionally feminine. Let's go.
That version of masculinity worked in 2016 where people felt for 30 or 40 years the establishment had just been lying to them and giving them a bunch of blah blah to make them feel good in the short run and wasn't being honest with them. The type of
Okay, so that's masculinity. That's the Trump masculinity. This we're supposed to make that association. Obviously, Hulk Hogan. There, it's this ridiculous machismo of a. Oh, thank you very much, some guy. Whoa, wait a minute. Female solipsism looks like, well, I know all the other girls do that, but I don't. I mean, I do that, but I don't do it, and for the same reasons that the other girls do it. I'm a good girl. I'm the one that doesn't do it the same as the other girls do it. That's part of it. Definitely part of it. So we'll come back to that. Anyways, what Scott Galloway is getting into here as far as like the differences in masculinity is we have one form of masculinity, which is the Trump form, the Republican form, the those asshole machismo guys that it worked in 2016. No, it works throughout World War II, World War I, probably the Civil War, probably in every single epoch of human history, right up until, oh, I don't know, the sexual revolution, which of course Scott's a boomer, so he knows lots about that. So anyways, just catching things up here, conventional masculinity is what it is. And this is why I don't use the term traditional masculinity very often. I only use traditional masculinity in terms of like sort of cultural effects, right? Or it could be racial effects, it could be ethnic effect, whatever it is. And the reason why I do that is because different traditions and different cultures have different traditions. So, but there are conventional aspects of masculinity that are across the board. And so I try to focus on those things so that I'm looking at something of a more objective picture of what masculinity is, as opposed to like what different cultures how they might express that. So for instance, when the American Psychological Association, the APA, decided to deem traditional masculinity as a cause for concern in 2017. And then by 2018, 2019, they decided that it belonged as a personality disorder in the DSM. So these are your masters and your priests of psychology deeming really what amounts to conventional masculinity as in some way a character flaw, or in some way a neuroses, or in some way a personality disorder that is to be sort of treated and with therapy. And of course that therapy has to be something along the lines of what Scott's about to describe here when it comes to walls. This is the walls form of masculinity.
Masculinity now, and the type of masculinity that is really resonating is walls. This is what we want from men. We want a guy who can coach football.
You notice that? This is what we want from men. We don't want Hulk Hogan. We don't want somebody who can go. We don't want somebody who can actually kick ass and save women from themselves and save women from being, beaten up on the streets of Manhattan when they're just randomly throwing punches at girls. Remember that back in March, April of this year? I remember Tim Pool said something to the effect of like, good, I'm glad women are getting like punched in the face. And people were like, oh, what are you talking about? Well, he only said that because it was bringing to light the fact that, first of all, women believe that they could defend themselves. They can handle they're superheroes and they're victims at the same time. It's Schrodinger's feminist, right? It's the idea that, feminism basically teaches two conflicting ideas at the same time. One, that women are superheroes and they can do anything, and anything is possible for them. But at the same time, they're also victims. And that's interchangeable depending on the situation and the circumstances. So if young men are just randomly walking around the streets of New York, smashing women in the face and running off, playing games by just like, whatever the knockout game is, I have no idea what it was. But then what's the first thing they say? Well, where are the men who are going to protect us? Where are the men who are going? Where are the strong men? And of course, those are the guys the one guy who does step up, he's the one that goes to jail for it. He's the one that for beating the ass of some guy who was like trying to beat the hell out of some girl. That guy goes to jail. So that's what you voted for, ladies. So that's number one. And number two is they don't really want that guy. They don't want that. And they need to have their emotionalism checked by empiricism. In this case, the emotionalism is, well, we want a guy like Walls. We want a football coach. We want a guy who's like, this is the masculinity we want. This guy is not the guy that's going to go and put his face in front of another man's fist to defend Milady's honor. Okay. This guy, you think this guy is going to be the one that's going to go save some chick off of the streets of Manhattan from getting beat up? I don't think so.
Football, who protects his nation for 24 years. His instincts as a man are to protect and be empathetic and to be gentle and to be understanding.
No, those are traditionally and classically, conventionally feminine qualities. Those are not masculine qualities. Now, it's not to say that men they'll lack some sort of capacity to sort of be understanding and all that, be protective, whatever the fuck that means. But the thing is that we have been leaning towards that kind of masculinity, or whatever the fuck that even amounts to, and trying to lean away from this macho bullshit, machismo stuff since he was at Woodstock, since the rise of the sexual revolution. Since the sexual revolution, that's exactly what we've done. And here we are again. And I mentioned this to Myron on our interview. And I said, look, I've been on your show. I've been on Fresh and Fit several times. I've been on other shows as well where this has happened, but I've been on his show, and I've been sitting next to 18, 19, 20, 22-year-old girls who are essentially repeating and parroting back the same vernacular and the same lines as Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem. And that's exactly this is what Scott Galloway is doing in the 21st century, saying, oh, we need to get back to this kind of masculinity. Bullshit. It doesn't fucking work. That's why. Because it's not masculinity. It is femininity is what it is. When we're talking about like, oh, we need to go, sit around a drum circle and talk about our feelings, or float in some fucking fat manatees in some sensory deprivation tank and talk it out and cry it out and anger it out and everything else. That's what chicks do, man. That's what chicks do. That's female therapy is what that is. That's not what men do. That's not a conventionally masculine way of dealing with problems. So yes, do men need to get off their ass and do some things? Yeah, sure they do, but they don't need to do it like Walls. Okay, they don't need to be the coach. Oh boy, what a nice way of that is keeping the slave on the plantation is what that is. That's basically all Scott Galloway is talking about here, is get the slave back on the plantation. And I pointed this out, like I said, to Myron on the Thursday. If you're wondering where that is, it's on their channel. It's on Rumble, and I want to say there's probably clips of it on their YouTube as well, which I've got some clips that are coming up as well from that. But if you're trying to find the entire interview, you'll find it on Rumble. You'll find it on the Fresh and Fit Rumble channel. So if you want to go and look that up, it's already out. But yeah, the guy is he's a lady man. Look at his children. Yeah. Well, the problem with this is like it sounds good. It sounds like masculinity. It sounds like, well, yeah, that's what we really want. We don't want an alpha. We want a beta with a side of alpha when we need that alpha to come out. That's that's really sort of this feminist, gynocentric fantasy right now, is that men will be there to facilitate the reality of women, to facilitate the safety, to facilitate every life plan. I put this out. I remember put this one tweet out on Twitter at one point, and it was a very short tweet. And I said, look, men do not owe women a better life. Oh my God. so many women, men came out of the woodwork. Well, you have to put her before your needs and everything else. And like every guy who I've ever said needs to get their mental point of origin straight, or how their mental point of origin has been sort of corrupted over the course of a lifetime. All of that came out of the woodwork. Everything came out of the woodwork when I said, Leslie, you do not owe a woman a better life. End of story. That's it. And I'll tell you, the thing is the reason why that rubbed people the wrong, it was like petting a cat backwards. It was like it rubbed people the wrong way. And I was like, why is this so like people could tell you, like they couldn't tell you exactly why it was like petting a cat backwards, but it did, and it felt like that. Like, it felt weird to have somebody like sort of vocalize it or articulate it like that. And of course, then everybody wants to say, well, women don't owe you sex after a date. Women don't owe you this. Women don't owe you that. Like, there always had to be like sort of this counterbalance. That's a yin and yang kind of thing, right? And that only happens when you expose sort of this unflattering truth about female nature, which, by the way, is what female solipsism does, is it exposes, this is an unflattering aspect of female nature. It can be. I don't think that it has to be, but I think that nature and evolution selected for women who have a solipsistic nature, have some sort of like solipsism is part of the evolved mental firmware. Well, Rollo, show me the studies that show you that. Show me the data. Show me the surveys. Show me that. And I'd be like, that's next to impossible to do. Even if you had, even if you could find or sort of like manufacture an experiment that is completely innocuous and completely objective, women aren't going to say, yeah, I'm a selfish cunt. No, but no woman is going to say that, whether it's anonymously or it's you're standing in front of an interviewer right there. You can only look at things observationally. And that's why I was saying that there's different ways to sort of assess dynamics. Now, is that correlation? Yes. Is there a causation in there? Probably not. But all I'm saying is that when I'm talking about solipsism, I'm talking about it from the perspective of like millions of guys relating millions of different stories over the course of 22 some odd years. And I was connecting dots when I was talking about solipsism. I was with female solipsism anyways. And the dots I was connecting is that evolution would have selected for women who have the capacity to sort of turn off their emotions as necessary, because they're the vulnerable sex. And so as this kind of dovetails into the war brides dynamic that I've talked about before. You can also sort of make the case for the alpha widow. I know that Alex from Date Psych decided that he was going to do some sort of, I don't know, once again, to do another highly unscientific Twitter poll as to whether women still pine for old lovers or pine for the old alpha. Now, of course, I'm not really sure too many of them would want to admit to something like that. Again, you're also going to run into the qualitative side of things. But again, you're using surveys, and you're just sort of like snapping up whoever happens to be, watching or paying attention to. I don't know how many followers he has. I don't know what the data sets are like. Have no earthly idea. I know they're not published by any legit psychological papers. I was going to say that's one of the reasons why I have a lot more respect for a guy like Mac and Murphy, who actually does these with a team of, and gets published for his research. Alex does not. Alex is would much rather try to find some pet article that he basically has some like very vague understanding of, like alpha widows, or probably the next one will probably be war brides. The next one after that will probably be solipsism or something. Come up with some cock and bull survey and say, see, proven. And then he'll go on somebody like Chris Williamson or somewhere else and just say, well, our survey says that this is all complete bullshit, and these guys from the red pill don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Well, the fact of the matter is that there's different ways to sort of collect research data. One of those is just being out in the field and observing the behavior in the wild. So I pointed this out, and I try to make this case. Like, if you know anything about, have you seen the movie Gorillas in the Mist, like with Diane Fossey and Jane Goodall? They are researching, evolutionary biologists. They're basically primatologists. They were out watching chimpanzees, I think in some cases gorillas as well. But essentially going out into the wild and watching animals do their thing. Right? Did they take surveys from the gorillas and the chimpanzees that said, do you strongly agree or disagree, blah, blah, blah? No, they did not do anything like that. So there are observational studies. There's ways that people want to say that those are just anecdotes. It's funny how they're anecdotes when it's human beings, but they're observational studies when it's any other critter besides a human, right? And honestly, I think that there's, I said this on the interview with Mike, or excuse me, with Myron. And I think I mentioned this. I think I mentioned this a couple shows ago. Used to be a guy. I don't think he's still active in the community anymore, but his name was Nick Krauser, and he was a pretty decent pickup artist in his day. And I've quoted him in a couple of books. And one of his best quotes, I think, was that, you know, pickup artistry, the seduction community. The seduction community has done more in the last 15 years to advance the knowledge of intersexual dynamics than the last 150 years of sociology, psychology, evolutionary psychology. And I should also point this out, is that if you're going to criticize observational studies and you in favor of surveys that you do on Twitter or whatever else, bear in mind that even sort of the quote unquote godfather of the evolutionary psychology space, Dr. David Buss, when he was doing, when he was doing the evolution of desire, like that Mike Sartain constantly refers to, remember, those are observational studies. There was no internet back then. He was doing those as far back as the late 80s. And then I believe the book was published in 1994. So we didn't have, everything had to be done it was all analog, right? Everything had to be done by hand. You had to be out there and doing this, what was it, the 52 was it 52 or maybe it's more than that, 100 and some odd culture study, just so that they could get an idea of, were there any consistencies when it comes to standards of beauty between, the Yanomamo tribe in New Guinea and the Hoon tribe somewhere else, or whatever the hunter-gatherer tribes were, in addition to like Western nations and everything else, right? And he was out there, asking the questions and everything, but they're also observing this stuff. And I also want to point this out too, is because I was just looking at this. Where'd it go? And this was something that Mack and Murphy actually made me aware of. And this is this is stated versus revealed preferences. So when we look at like what women are wanting versus what they are getting, like what the in this case, if you're looking at the number one here, this of course is for women. They want loyalty. They say that they want loyalty, but their revealed preferences is that they really want a good lover. And you can look at the other ones that are involved in this, but again, when I see stuff like this, and by the way, these are people who, in most cases, they got an axe to grind with the red pill, and we've been saying this for a long time. Hell, I mean, it's in my first book, The Medium is the Message, right? And that it's not just limited to, believe what she does, not what she says kind of thing. It's that what she does is actually the message. That's why I named it The Medium is the Message. And yes, I know there's actually a book called The Medium is the Message, but it had nothing to do with what I was talking about. The thing is like the actions and the behaviors are a language. It is the message that woman is sending to you. So if that woman is flaking on you for dates, or if she's acting in such a way that is incongruous with what her words are, the message is the behavior. This is Rollo Tomasi, the psychologist. Remember, my background is in behaviorism, not in Evo Psych. So the behavior is what defines the message. So when guys tell me like, oh, Rollo, she's sending me mixed messages. She's not sending you mixed messages. You just don't want to read the message that is her flaking on you and she doesn't want anything to do with you. She ghosted you. That's the fucking message, man. So there's no such thing as mixed messages. It's just your inability to see what they are and to understand how her behavior sends is a language. It's her talking, right? It's how she's communicating to you with the behavior. And so women want you to just get it. Sometimes it's a good thing, and most times it's not a good thing. So, so bear that in mind. But the thing is like when I look at things like this and I look at the stated preferences versus revealed preferences, then I also have to take that and then I got to compare it against stuff like this, which is a regulated sexual market. What I want is loyalty, right? Well, what you get is a good lover, right? Well, we can see the conflict between sort of a regulated sexuality and sexual freedom in there. And so when we're talking about what people state that they want versus the behavior The medium is the message. This doesn't even have to necessarily deal with just women. It can deal with men too. The medium is the message. So the medium in this case is the stated preference, but the message is actually the revealed preference in that sense. So when we're doing that and we're observing that, that's not done through I mean, maybe the stated preference is done through a survey, but the revealed preferences are revealed through observation stuff, through field studies, for saying, okay, it looks like you got with a good lover instead of a guy who is necessarily loyal. Right? Why is it that, I mean, we constantly see, for instance, the girl who's talking about, like, I've used this video several times already, so I won't show it to you one more time. I can if you want, but the woman who's talking about how there's 3 different kinds of guys. There's the guys who are never going to get laid. There's the guys who might get laid, the 20%er guys. And then there's the 4.5%er guys who are always going to get laid no matter what, in spite of themselves. Well, that's one observation, one data point in probably a field of millions of the same one. So at what point do we go, you know what? This is a trend. That's how algorithms work. You want to know why you get certain videos like popping up in your YouTube feed or your TikTok feed or whatever else? Just because those are trending. Why? Because enough people are watching them and want to see those things. Enough people, it resonates with enough people that there has to be some sort of trend. There has to be some sort of, not necessarily truth to it, but certainly some sort of popularity to it, enough that people want to keep watching it. Well, how do we ignore that as sort of, we're just going to say that's anecdotal? I don't think so. So we have to look at things not just in terms of surveys and not just in terms of, like, strongly agree, disagree, blah, 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 blah. We also have to look at things in the field. And that's really kind of where my strengths ended up being, because I was in the field. I've been in the field for a long time now, whether it was in doing casino marketing and promotion and doing, like, entertainment direction and stuff, whether it was, brand management for the wine and spirits industry, whether doing liquor promos, special events coordination, that kind of stuff. Or even when I'm at, say, Babes in Toyland, or if I'm somewhere else and I'm observing not even just my friends, but other people, I'm a keen observer of human behavior. So you can say, well, that's just you, Rolo. That's you. It's all through your window of implicit bias. Yes, but I'm not the only one doing the observations. Other people are. And I think that it's widespread enough and it's significant enough that we need to sort of at least take that into consideration. So it's like I said, the Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall effect. Are we going to discontinue? Are we going to disqualify everything that they've done, all of their studies, because they said, oh, we didn't ask the apes whether or not they preferred a loyal partner or a cad, right? So I think it's funny because a lot of the stuff that we see observationally, I've got, where did it go? I've got not the dating standards one. I've got this was it the female nature side of things here. I think this is funny because, like, this is just recently. I just got this back. I think some of these were back as far back as July. Rob Henderson, worldwide, women report being awake at night more often than men. Report. Following puberty, women had a 40% higher risk of men developing insomnia. Why is that? Right. Well, that's the data set. So how are we going to interpret that? Oh, here's the other one. This is what I wanted. Overall, male bonobos. Okay. Bonobos, chimps, right? Just so you know, because people want to throw this shit out at me. They're like, oh yeah, it's like sex at dawn or something like that. And the bonobos are just these peace-loving, they just want to fuck everybody. And they're not at all. They're some of the most violent primates you ever want to know. Overall, male bonobos turned out to be about 3 times as likely as chimps to engage in aggressive behavior. Their aggression didn't appear to be a turnoff for the female bonobos, who actually preferred to mate with aggressive males. Okay, well, again, these are all observation. They don't ask the female bonobos, well, he's violent. Would you want to go fuck him? Strongly agrees, disagree, whatever. Okay, that's not happening. So we have to look at things from an observational perspective. Now, here's the kicker. This is out of a book. I can't remember what the name of the book is. Where did it go? I want to say this is like the Naked Bono. The gorilla father. So this is gorillas now. We're talking about gorillas. The gorilla father who fails to keep infants safe. Should an outsider charge into his group and kill an infant, he loses future opportunities to mate with the mother. Mothers whose infants are killed often desert the hapless defender and follow the killer instead. Now, that's an ugly. Are we saying that that's what women do? Well, I don't know, because we can also go and look at. I don't know. Is there a correlation between that and, let's see, where did it go? I thought I had. Oh, I have it in the. I have it here. Hang on. I have to go and shit. I thought I had this on tab. Is this it? Here it is. So, is there a correlation between that data and this data? Deadpool killer who murdered 2 women for the sake of killing, flooded with messages from lovesick fangirls. Look at that dude, man. Tattooed, man. His name is Wade Wilson. Has lovesick ladies begging a judge to save his life, even though he brutally slaughtered 2 women in 2019 just for the sake of killing. Connection? I don't know. You guys tell me. I just fucking work here. Should we leave that to the eggheads, to the gatekeepers in their ivory towers? See, that's the thing, is like, I think a lot of people don't want to, like, it's funny how we want to use bonobos and chimps and everything when it sounds like it's good. Oh, they're really egalitarian. They really share it's kin altruism. They're altruistic. Like, they believe in egalitarianism. No, actually, bonobos are more violent or more hostile than chimps, actually. And on top of that, gorillas. I should also point this out. And this is not just for primates, but it's also for, like, I want to say lions do the same thing. But if a rival alpha comes into the troop of gorillas or primates, or a rival lion comes into the pride and kills or runs off the previous alpha, who was sort of the harem master, I guess, of the females. What happens is that gorilla or whatever goes into the troop and kills off it's infanticide. It goes and kills all of the offspring of the previous rival alpha, which of course is horrible, right? Except for one thing. It sends all of the females into estrus immediately. And they get hot and they want to have sex with the guy who was actually the one who went in and killed off or ran off the previous alpha. So some things like this, some observations like this, and some correlations, and maybe some dot connecting that we might say, well, maybe there's some sort of parallel in human behavior. I'm not saying we go and, stepfathers necessarily go and kill their stepkids, but there is a higher incidence of abuse, like astronomically higher. Rob Henderson has talked about this on a few occasions, but the likelihood that a child is going to be abused from, like, say, a step parent or a mommy's boyfriend is astronomically higher than the actual biological father being the one who's the perpetrator of that. So is that a parallel? I don't know. We can't actually go and do surveys of that. We can't say, well, if you had the chance, would you kill your kid, your stepson? Strongly agree. Disagree. Like, you're not going to ask those questions. You have to watch the data, and you have to watch what's going on. It's observational. Really, it's quantitative studies, right? Because, and unfortunately, it's not something that is really something you take any joy in, I'm sure. But the fact of the matter is that shit exists. So are we going to discount the observation? I don't think so. So I think those are some things that need to be sort of addressed. And the other thing is and this will be my last point on this before I move on, because I think this is important when it comes to solipsism, because solipsism is not going to be proven by a questionnaire. You're only going to be able to observe it and then decide for yourself whether or not you think that is a dynamic that is in play or it is not. I'm just simply arguing and putting out the point or the hypothesis that female solipsism would or is necessarily a selected for survival trait, really, that is part of women's innate evolved firmware, their mental firmware, their psychological firmware. And I think that time and time again, you're going to see that this is, dude, go fuck yourself, dude. Really? Here. You know what? Somebody go send him the link of my pictures of me without my beanie on from Instagram. Please go and send that off to that guy. Thank you. You can go stroke off to my luxury. Look, see, the thing that's funny is, like, people think this is not his real hair. No, it's actually, see, look, it doesn't come off. Jesus. I love it. Actually, it's kind of getting a little bit longer. Maybe it's the TRT. Is that I thought it would make it fall out, but I don't know. I feel like I kind of like actually grew a little bit since then. Yeah, that's funny. But anyways, the idea of solipsism is not something that's you're going to be able to sort of like, you're going to poll a bunch of women and say, are you really solipsistic? You're not going to do that, right? You're not going to even really poll guys and say, oh, do you really think that women are actually solipsists? Let me get these real quick. Women who are res, I don't know what the fuck that is. Let's see, got to you. My man, thank you, Derek, for your $4.99 for your one little brief thing. Women don't want a beta. They want a beta that can provide money, kids. It's transactional. Only Chad will get the validation and intimacy from her. Let's see. Oh, great. Did my stream end for... Looks like the stream ended on Rumble. Oh, well. Oh, well. Yeah, Rumble is still a work in progress. Swallow Tomasi don't get no hose. Wait, do I not get no hose today? Where's my no hose drop? I know I got it. I know I put it on here. I'm dead certain I put it on here. I'll find it. Oh, there it is. I'm like, man, Swallow Tomasi don't get no hose, man. There you go. God, that was the best. That was the best drop. That, you know, what's funny is that was like from some like really obscure channel who was just giving me shit. I think it was like when all that stuff with DJ Academics was going on like 2 years ago. And the guy was, I think he was just trying to get DJ Academics attention or something like that when all that shit was going down. And like the guy was clearly fucked up or drunk or something when he did that. I'm like, that is the best drop I could pull. Keep the awesome work, Uncle Swallow. Is solipsism a strong element for hypergamy not caring? Yes. I'm glad you brought that up. Hypergamy doesn't care. You know what? Let's just remove that because it doesn't look like Rumble wants to play nice. So there we go. So who is that, right? So anyways, when we're talking about solipsism, my point is that, in fact, let me just run in this real quick here. I'm going to throw this up on screen. Share this screen with you guys. This is from Solipsism 1. This is my first sort of essay about solipsism. September 2nd. Wow, it's coming up. 2015. Okay. Gosh, it's almost 10 years old. Well, it's coming up on 9 years now. I wrote this down. This is actually what inspired this. Now, do you remember this quote from Hillary Clinton? Because it's been out forever, right? Women have always been the primary victims of war. Women lose their husbands, their fathers, their sons in combat. Women often have to flee from their homes. They have the homes they have, the only homes they have ever known. Women are often the refugees from critical or from conflict, and sometimes more frequently in today's warfare, victims. Women are often left with the responsibility alone of raising the children. Yeah, well, except for the fact that the men folk are dead. The men, they're dead. And so I think what's funny is like when you look at this one statement is actually what sort of tipped me off for the whole thing about solipsism, right? The man dies, men dead, but women are the primary victims of war. You see how that works? Like it's this idea that what doesn't work for them, anything that is a hindrance to their existence, turns into something that is victimization. So when we talk about like female victimization, or the idea that women can simultaneously be superheroes, but they're also victims at the same time, that victims at the same time, actually the superheroes too, is an expression of solipsism. There's never been a more solipsistic quote than women are the primary victims of, or have always been the primary victims of war. But their men are dead, Hillary. Your men are definitely the primary victims of war, all right? Not the women, the men. But anytime you put the needs of, this is how you'll be able to discern whether solipsism is real. Anytime you put men's needs ahead of women's needs, that's when you will see the solipsism come out. So when I said, men, you do not owe a woman a better life. That's why women and men alike lost their fucking mind. They couldn't tell you why they were losing their minds, but they lost their minds because it sounded like something that is so inherently wrong that for me to even say now, oh, you must be one of those incels. Now we got to find some way to sort of reframe the empirical observational quote of Rollo Tomassi. And we've got to find some way to sort of disqualify that. Who hurt you? Right? Oh, you must have been burned really bad. What's your family life like? Boy, I hope you don't have any daughters because I wouldn't want them to be raised like you. Like that, like no matter what, it always comes back to sort of this emotional appeal. But the fact of the matter is men don't owe women a better life and shouldn't feel like they do. But when I say something like that, people, again, women and men alike, lose their minds. The same thing goes back to when I was talking about Scott Galloway, talking about the two different kinds of masculinity. One of those masculinities is primarily focused on the male. That is the conventional masculinity of Hulk Hogan for no other purpose than to serve the interests of that man. I've talked about this when I talk about toxic masculinity, right? The idea and the concept of qualifying masculinity. Very few people, you'll never hear toxic femininity come out of a woman's mouth. You'll hear it come out of guys who maybe are in the manosphere, maybe black pill guys. Misandry. You know what's funny is you can write the word misogyny. Wait, where did it go?
Misogyny.
You can write the word misogyny in like Microsoft Word or Grammarly. But if you write the word misandry, you'll get a little red line that comes underneath it because the dictionary for Microsoft Word for Grammarly either doesn't know that or it's been programmed to flag that so that you'll find some other way of writing it. That's how endemic it's what is it? George Orwell said, if words can corrupt thought, then thought can corrupt words, or vice versa. And that's the level of sort of importance that propping up and lifting up women and being interested in. You want to talk about gynocentrism? When people ask me, well, Rollo, show me some proof of gynocentrism, right there. I mean, it's little things like that, little subtleties like that. So, Rollo, show me solipsism. I can show it to you when it pops up. I can show it to you in like sort of increments. Is there a study about it? No, there's unlikely to ever be a study about it because nobody would think to do the study in the first place. That's because what we have right now, and I'm going to bring this up. I brought this up on a couple of occasions because this is also sort of very important to the conversation of solipsism. It is what's known as the women are wonderful effect in psychology. And I'll bring this up again because people have asked me about this on several occasions when I talk about how women are wonderful. Oh, Rollo, you must be selling out. No, women are wonderful. I'm reading this. I'll read this from the psychological effect. The women are wonderful effect is the phenomenon found in psychology and sociological research, which suggests that people associate more positive attributes with women when compared to men. This bias reflects an emotional bias towards women as a general case. The phrase was coined by Alice Eagley and Antonio Mladinich in 1994 after finding that both male and female participants tend to assign positive traits to women, with female participants showing a far more pronounced bias. Positive traits were assigned to men by participants of both genders, but to a far less degree. The authors suppose that the positive general evaluation of women might derive from the association between women and nurturing characteristics. This bias has been cited as an example of what's called benevolent sexism. Okay, now they go through that. I would suggest anybody who is interested in this, just look up the women are wonderful effect. This is something that's been very, like I said, 1994 was when this was proposed, and it's been around for quite some time right now. So when I'm talking about how we live in a gynocentric social order, it's to the point where we don't even think, we don't even have an afterthought about it. When I start talking about how there's a gynocentric social order, women are like innately solipsistic, it's also because men feed into that solipsism. So it's not just solely something that is, maybe it's part of women's innate mental firmware, but it's amplified, particularly in an age of social media and instantly gratified attention needs. Things like that. Oh, what do we got here? Wait. Where'd you go? There it is. Politics, father, and religion have all failed me my whole life. The red pill told me the gut-wrenching truth. I'm grateful. Thank you. You know what? Here you go. You get, oops, right there. Which one should we give you? Let's give you, what the hell? You can have that. You can have it on the market. That's too good. I'm grateful because of you. I know why I have struggled with women in other things in life. Thank you for this. Well, you are very, very welcome, my friend. Please go tell each one, tell one. Is censorship and the woke culture simply an inevitable end with gynocentrism? I would say so. I would say woke culture, and well, certainly censorship. You want to know how I know this? In fact, I'll be happy to tell you why. I will actually give you hard data for that, which I was going to give you today anyways. So when we see Scott Galloway, for instance, talking about the difference between sort of this machismo Trump type masculinity and the kind of masculinity we want, which is a female, feminine, approved masculinity. There's the toxic masculinity, which is the attributes and the type of masculinity, or I should say the attributes of masculinity that only benefit a male imperative. Then there is the type we really want, which is the kind that is in some way beneficial to the female imperative. Okay. So if the attributes of conventional masculinity, and that, by the way, there is no toxic masculinity, there is only masculinity, and then there are the aspects of it that either complement a female imperative, or they are not necessarily opposed, but they certainly have no bearing on anyone but the man himself. That's why I keep saying, like, whenever I hear these guys like, well, Scott Galloway for sure, but whenever I hear guys like Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro or Andrew Klavan or Michael Knowles and the rest of these guys want to talk, I just said Scott Galloway was talking about how men need to man up and be better, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they need to be better, not because he wants them to be better men, not because he wants to have men sort of recapture that masculinity that is more self-serving. He wants them to be better men so that they can solve a uniquely female problem, which is there's not enough good men to go around and there's not enough good slaves on the plantation. That's what it comes back down to. They don't want you to be a better man for the sake of you being a better man. They want you to be a better man for the sake of solving that woman's problem, which is there ain't enough good men to go around. We need good men. We need guys who are on board with, providing women with a better fucking life. That's essentially what it comes down to. And so when you see, and this isn't even Scott Galloway, but when you see these other videos that I posted at the beginning of today's show, where women are saying they're making more money, they're more educated, they're just better. Like they've become, as I keep saying, they have become the men that they wanted to marry. So the only ones that will do, and by the way, yes, you can stop sending me this video as well. I know this happened on whatever podcast. There was some 50-year-old chick on there who no one but Chad is going to work for her. At 50 years old, she still thinks she's going to get postmenopausal, still thinks she's going to be able to get with the guy who's like a super high value dude, because that's where her ego and that's where her hubris is right now. There's never going, by the way, the higher a woman sort of thinks about herself, the higher her self-esteem, the more ridiculous her standards become when it comes to getting with the guy. And ladies, you did it to yourself. You priced yourself out of the sexual marketplace. And if you are not a hot piece of ass to begin with, which is the prime requisite for most guy, for the high value guy you want to get with, you better be a fucking bikini model. You better be a fucking lingerie model. In addition to, owning your own business and taking care of having the bag and all this other shit that you also better look like Jamie Villamore. You also better look like fucking hot, because that's going to be the number one primary criteria for most guys. And you better be sexually available. And you better be loyal in that sexual availability to that one guy. So that man, those guys who no one else will do, who you won't settle for no matter what, those guys, they got the fucking world is their oyster in the global sexual marketplace. So what are you going to do amongst this ocean of women who went to school, got the job, have all this, and still believe that men owe you a better fucking life? That's the problem you have right now, ladies. If you are struggling at 35 years old, whatever it is you're at right now, and you can't look, Rollo, where are the good men? They're in your 20s where you left them. That's where they are. No more for you. The guys who are your age, the guys who are in your peers, the guys who could give two shits about what you think is an appropriate age difference between him and the 22-year-old he wants to bang, that guy doesn't want to have anything to do with you. That dude, and again, because he doesn't owe you a better life, and he knows he doesn't owe you a better life. Those guys, the guys who stand out, the guys who are going to be the high value men, they are the guys who embrace that a masculinity that serves their interests, not your interests. So take that to the fucking bank, Scott Galloway. I would love to debate this with you on any fucking day. It'll never happen, but because it'll kill his grift. But the thing is that those women will never find that guy, or if they do, they'll be the rare jewel in the rough that does. You know, and so, ladies, you got two choices. You either settle. You either get with a guy who is less than the best you could do, or at least according to your mindset and your hubris that has been evolved and developed over the course of the last, like, say, 20 some odd years, courtesy of social media, or you're going to be alone. And you want to know why we will see, what is it? These guys who was saying this in the video, you know, these guys who will go out there. Oh, it was Orion Taraban. He's 100% right. And I was actually this is kind of gangster for Orion too. Like, go Orion. But the fact is like, yeah, the reason why those shows are a big deal is because of exactly what I just said. They lay it bare. Ladies, you're going to have to either settle, most likely, by and large, statistically speaking, you're going to settle for somebody who is not you're going to think at some point is not the best you could have done, or you're not going to be with anybody at all. So are you going to be happy with that? Are you just going to get with the guy you need Dick Dash? You need the guy to, go out and order out for, Big Dick to come and fuck you and then leave you? Because that's basically what it's going to come down to, because nobody's going to want to have any kind of like long-term relationship with you. And that's not because you're not sexy. That's not because you're not. It's simply because you're past the expiration for guys who are the high value guys that you say nothing else will do. Those guys don't owe you a better life. So when we're looking at the two different kinds of masculinity, we're looking at the quote unquote, the machismo Trump style masculinity, and then the Walls style of masculinity. The Walls style of masculinity is the masculinity that the reason why Scott Galloway says that that's what we all need is simply because that's what women need. That's not what we all need. That's what women need. They need that guy to be, he's like a beta with just maybe I wouldn't say Walls represents this, but beta with the side of alpha. And that is never believable, because when a guy like sort of alphas up, he either gets killed or else he seems like he's pouting. He seems like he's not manning up. He's manning up occasionally. It's not his primary personality. It's not his predominant personality. Alpha is not his predominant personality. And the thing is like when women get with that guy, when they finally get with the guy who's alpha is his predominant predisposition and his personality trait, then they realize that that's what they've been looking for all along. Even dyed-in-the-wool feminists will tell you the same thing. So to answer your question, is censorship and you know what, I'm going to hang on to that because that's too good a question not to come back to. I've got another little section here for you right there. What do you got? Agent of Change. Zinch. Major Eaton. Who the fuck is that? We have top men working on it right now. Indiana Jones. Who? Top men. Remember that scene? That was pretty good. Indiana Jones. Yes, another. By the way, Indiana Jones, the Trump machismo side of the the coin, the Oreo cookie of masculinity. Well, what do you got here? Women mate and date for gain. Briffelt's law. Well, again, Briffelt wasn't technically writing about men and like human beings at this point, but it serves. Women will always feel like they are owed a better life. It's basic hypergamy. Yes, it's also basic solipsism. Okay, so what is solipsism when it comes to women? Let me run back through here. That said, okay. That's it. If you ever need a better quote to explain the realities of the feminine solipsism, I think that I'd be at a loss to give you one. This is after the Hillary thing. A lot of men, even red pill aware men, have a hard time understanding how solipsism fits concretely into the feminine psyche. The social conditioning and upbringing that predisposes us towards an egalitarian, equalist mindset rebels against thinking women and men would ever have different psychological firmware. Remember what I said about the blank slate. This is, you want to know why women think that men ought to be invested in their life plan and owe them a better life? It's because women still to this day buy into this social narrative of the blank slate. Men and women are exactly the same. And so if they are the same, then they should have the same long-term goals and the same mental state and the same life plans as women do. And so if you don't, you're toxically masculine. There's something very, very wrong with you. Okay? The social conditioning and upbringing that predisposes us towards egalitarian equalist mindset rebels against that. Okay. Equalism teaches us to expect that men and women's needs share mutual origins, and our impulses are so similar that any difference is insignificant. That egalitarian frame predisposes us to consider that not all women are like that, or to dissociate the idea that men and women could be anything but functionally equal agents. As a result, we get convenient distractions to confuse our looking for comparisons to should anyone or thing challenge an equalist answer. Simply put, we get rationales like, oh, well, men do it too, or worse, or any opposite comparison that leads us away from considering the truth that men and women are psychologically, biologically, and sociologically different, with different motives and different strategies which they employ to meet their different imperatives. This is what Scott Galloway doesn't fucking get. The masculinity that is the Trump masculinity, the Hulk Hogan masculinity is the same fucking masculinity as the guy who is the protector. It's the same fucking thing. One complements a female imperative. The other is only about the guy himself. That's why you have a fucking problem with it, Scott. Because there's a masculinity that only serves the man. Aspects of it only serve the man. Oh, it's so selfish. No, it's not. There used to be a time prior to the sexual revolution where none of this would have ever been a conversation. It was about the guy. It was about the quote unquote patriarchy in a rougher, sense than it is right now. Again, patriarchy, a much more balanced system than feminism for sure, and a much more balanced system than anything else that we have tried or attempted to develop in a post-sexual revolution society. That you want to know why you want to know why this masculinity worked until 2016? It's still working right now. You're just not a part of it. You just don't know any different. Hell, I see it working in MO and Men of Action every fucking time we have an immersive. I see that same masculinity working great in Reignite. I see that shit working fantastic down at Zook. I see it at fucking clubs. I see it at fucking bikini contests. I see it at the fucking gym. Let me tell you something. I am glad I have that sort of mindset and that masculinity as something of a motivator for me when I've got the weight of a small Volkswagen off across my back when I'm doing fucking squats. You're goddamn right. I'm glad I'm that fucking animal. I'm glad I can be that animal. It's not, oh, I gotta squat this because my wife wants me to. I gotta get home and fucking make the eggs. Fuck that, man. So anyway, simply put, we get rational. Okay, so let's keep going here. From a solipsistically obvious, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Separating differences. Let's see. I'm trying not to. This is a very long post, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here with you. Oh, solipsism is not narcissism. That's another thing. A lot of newly red pill aware men get confused when I'm using the term solipsism when I refer to this female specific obliviousness to any concern or lesser prioritized concern of anything outside their immediate existential needs. That's basically what solipsism is. Now, why is solipsism a thing? I'm going to give you like sort of the distilled version of this. Solipsism had to be something that would have developed in women's brains or their psyches over the course of millennia because they are, first of all, the vulnerable sex. They need protection. So in a sense, Galloway's not incorrect when we're talking about protection, but the protection that he thinks that Wall's variety of masculinity can provide is an insecure, kind of like unstable, uncertain protection. The real protection comes from the Hulk Hogan, President Trump, whatever the fuck, the more machismo side of it, right? The same masculinity that makes a firemen run into a burning building to save a baby from the burning building is the same masculinity that these guys do, like cliff diving. Have you seen those cliff diving videos?
Yeah.
Where these guys do like, they'll do flips and they'll fall like you guys. I don't see women doing this.
Yes.
I only see dudes doing this, and it's fucking insanity, right? It looks like hella fun. Or you see these dudes who will like, they'll run across like these high-rise buildings and they'll do backflips and they'll jump over the walls and everything. And then like, I'm waiting for one of these videos where the guy goes just out of the box, splat. You know, they don't show you that video.
They never do.
Right. It's fucking insane. Absolutely fucking insane. No women are doing this. Only guys are doing this. Or they're going in like they're cliff diving, like that one dude, that one bald-headed dude who goes with like 2 fucking axes and he launches himself down into some icy, like watery pool kind of thing. And like probably falls like, oh, I don't know, like 10 stories into this like freezing ass cold water. That masculinity to do crazy dumb shit, like, I mean, maybe it's not a thrill seeking like that, is the same masculinity that prompts the fireman to run into the burning building and save the baby.
Yep.
Same fucking thing.
It's like this comment right here.
One serves the female imperative better than the guy who just jumps off with 2 fucking axes and goes into the cold water like fucking Thor. You know, what was it? Let me see that one again.
It was Red Bull's channel's just full of daredevil guys.
Fuck
like,
yeah. Fuck yeah. Those are cool too. I hate to say it, but because okay, so I'm not like a danger freak like that. Like I've never been skydiving. It's not to say that I wouldn't do it. I might do it someday. I like speed. I like speed. I like fast cars. I like fast motorcycles. I like things that go fast. Like my you want to know what Aaron Claire is going to kill me for this. When I set my snowmobile on fire, everybody remember. I don't know if anybody remembers this story, but I one time I set my snowmobile on fire and I almost exploded because I was running it with like racing fuel that I never should have put in the fucking thing. Shit. And it was because I was barreling ass across like this big old icy kind of, wanted to see how fast I could turn it out. I looked down and there's flames shooting out the side, like that never should have been. Like it's actually like, so I have this Ski-Doo. Well, one of my sleds is a Ski-Doo Summit. It's tricked out for racing. I didn't think it would be like any problem, right? And so I'm rolling along and suddenly I see flames shooting out the sides, and it's not coming out of the exhaust. It's actually coming out of the actual, chassis of the snowmobile. I'm like, oh fuck. And I stop it and I get out and I like, okay, there's no way I'm going to be able to run far enough to get away from the explosion. That's probably going to happen any minute now. So what I did was I went and I scooped up as much snow as I could, and I just started packing it into, like, I opened up the side panels, the fairings, and I started just packing all kinds of snow into that, and that put it out. And I had my guy, my tech was fixing. I thank God, I fixed it. I mean, it was such a good sled. I didn't want it to. I would have felt so bad if it actually exploded. But the dude showed me the fuel line.
Just melted through.
And he was like, it was like millimeters away from the flame because it showed me where it melted. Yeah, getting into it, and I was like, so yeah, that's my story about setting my snowmobile on fire. Sorry. But it was because I like speed. I get speed kicked, right?
I mean, they had the dude on Red Bull who climbed up K2, which already a quarter of the people who actually climbed that mountain died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he skis down it.
Down the thing. Yeah. Why? Because we fucking can. That's why. And if we can, we do. I love that line. No, but so I can remember I got my sled fixed after that. And it cost me a pretty penny too. Like, it cost a lot to get, but it was such a good sled, right? So I got it and I got it set up. And I like to go boondocking, which means I like to go do backcountry sledding. Yep. And that's like especially out here in the Sierras, that's like the most dangerous fucking thing you can do. But it's fun, right? And it's like a moth to the flame. Every time I get out there and I roll it, or I have to because I guarantee you I'm going to have to dig myself out at least once on a trip, right? You carry, you do whatever, you prepare for the worst, right? Yeah. But I've had an 800 pounds, I think it's 800 pounds, about an 800 pound snowmobile roll over me because I've rolled it. Because I was up and I was like side cutting. Yeah. And if it falls out from underneath, like if the snow falls out from underneath you, you go under and the thing starts to roll, right? And I've had that, and it's fucking scary as fuck, right? Very scary. But fortunately, it didn't crush my chest or anything like that because there's enough snow to be as a pad right there. And you know, and thank God it didn't land on top of me and I suffocated, right? And I've had that happen before. I'll still go out and do it again. I'll still fucking do it, man.
I had that same
I
thing.
don't know why. I just don't know why.
It's the thrill.
Like I've had some pretty close calls with death in my life, right? Like I would say at least probably 7 times. And of those 7 times, I think 5 of them were like snowmobile. You know, and it's just, I don't know what it is. It's just like a moth to the fucking flame again. It's just because the thrill is worth the danger. Right?
For me, it's like Pismo Beach, back before they banned all the fucking ATVs they had out there.
Yeah.
You would go, and I didn't check the hill. So I just bombed a freaking hill going 20 feet over it.
Mhm.
And my God, when I landed, I thought I was about to die because I'm just crashed straight into it.
Right.
My God.
But see, that's the kind of thing is like, those are the kinds of things that guys do. But they have to still tap into that same kind of masculine, like the same thing that like makes me like tempt fate and tempt death, you know, for a snowmobile was the same thing, that it's the same masculinity or same impulse, the same psychological firmware. Like, you know, what's funny is if I say, you know, there's something about men who like want to have some sort of danger. They want some sort of thrill seeking, whether, you know, sometimes guys grow out of it because they get older and everything and their testosterone drops or whatever. But when you were a kid, I did some pretty dumb fucking shit when I was a kid. I did some pretty like close call dangerous shit when I was a kid, right? But when you're a kid, you don't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a qualifiable difference between like if you're like 13 or 15 or something like that and you do something dangerous, at least you can say like, well, I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
When you're in your 20s and your 30s, like I knew better and I just still did it anyways, you know? But I think that there's like, if I say there is some sort of innate inherent quality in men's like evolved mental firmware to be risk takers, like men are much more comfortable with risk than women are. Why is that? Because women need long-term security. They're the vulnerable sex, right? But we don't say that about like the guy who is, we don't, if we were to say something like that, I think of what's the meme? The meme is like, here's why women live longer. Yeah, because you play it safe. You're not the risk aversion is there. For guys, it's like hell, if we go and we pull it off and we ride a wheelie down the street and we don't like crash in front of Susie, maybe she'll pay attention to us. Right?
I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah, I'll do it again. You know, that was kind of fun, right? So let's see, I pull that out. What's this? That Manect answer you gave me was dynamite. Thanks. You're welcome. By the way, if you want to contact me anytime on Manect, you feel free. The link is below. It's the third link in the right before the fold. If you want to have sorry, not that one, Nelson. Thank you. Yes, if you want to give me a super chat anytime, you can do so. Cheers, Professor Tomasi. Actually able to be live for the class this week. Well, wait a minute.
Hello there, children. How's it going?
There you go. Rolla, you have to go skydiving. It's the best. You love it. I probably will. The problem is like here's why I'm afraid. If I do it, I want to keep doing it. Right? I want to keep doing it. Oh gosh, I almost feel bad about having this. I don't want to stop the show here, but there was a time when I think I was locking horns with Sneeko, and it was like about a year ago, and it was when all this bullshit went down with Destiny and stuff like that. And I was locking horns with Sneeko, and I said, look, I don't understand why everybody thinks it's like some like noble goal to, you know, your death is going to be better than my death if you're sitting in like some assisted living facility, or you're in the hospital and you're surrounded by your friends and your family, and it's like this Norman Rockwell picture, you know, and your wife is there holding your hand as you like cross over into heaven, and you cross over to the great beyond or whatever, and they're just celebrating the life that you've lived, and you're just sitting there in the hospital bed, and just suddenly the thing goes,
You
flatline, and you peacefully like fade into the next life, right? Like that's the fucking goal. Like people, and by the way, this is the biggest fucking fantasy ever. And I'll tell you what, my mom died alone during COVID, right? No one was there because it was during the COVID times, right? I spent the last 8 months, almost a year of my mom's life looking at her and talking to her from behind a window screen because of this bullshit. So whenever anytime anyone says, "Oh, Rollo, here, can you believe these vaxxers? Can you believe?" You know what? Fuck you. I don't want to hear it. Don't even tell me whether you. I don't care whether you're for or against it. Don't even bring it up with me because I will just tell you, "Fuck you."
Yep.
Simple as that. But mom didn't have me around anything. In fact, they just called. In fact, I told you what's funny is I remember it was actually about 11:30 at night. And I've been making trips to see my mom, which was in Gardnerville, and I was in Reno. So it was quite the trip. It was at least an hour 20 to get down to her. And the people at the assisted living called me up and they said, well, Mr. Tomasi, your mother's passed, blah, blah, blah. Right. And my wife was like looking at me like, why isn't he crying? And I said the reason I wasn't crying because I had never felt that much rage in my life. I'd never been more pissed off in my life at that point because of everything that had led up to that. Now I cried, of course, when my mom, at the funeral and stuff. Okay. But I was just like, first of all, I was numb. And then second of all, it was somewhere between numb and just like absolute like animal, like Karn the betrayer, world eater, Angron fucking anger. Right. And so, and that was that. And then my father actually passed away also in a very similar conditions too. He passed away from Alzheimer's dementia. Couldn't even remember who his kids were, his grandchildren, his dogs, whatever else. And passed away actually from complications of Alzheimer's dementia. And again, we cremated him. I had a little ceremony for him. I spread his ashes in Avalon Bay in Catalina, which is probably where he would have wanted it anyways. And so, I made a deal out of it. But again, the idea that you're going to have some sort of peaceful death and there should be surrounded by family and friends. And it's almost like a retirement party, And I've thought about this and, I'm debating Sneeko about this. I go, you know what, Sneeko, there was a time where like people would be like, fuck that. I want to die with a sword in my back, right? I want to I'll tell you, I was just joking around. I said, I want to die in my Camaro listening to Angel of Death by Slayer when I hit the fucking wall or when I smash at, 200 miles per hour. That would be a fucking badass death. That would be awesome. Because it's just as big a fantasy as like just sitting around with all your, all your friends and stuff. And one of those deaths is the masculinity death. That is, I want to die as I was born, like screaming with someone else's blood on me, like that there's that death. And then there's we're all going to be peaceful. We're all going to die. We're going to hold grandpa's hand as he passes into the afterlife. Right. Like, fuck that. And I know enough about it. I've seen it happen. I know enough people. And it's like, first of all, I know both of those are fantasies, but the thing is like the very fact that we want to like, sort of like, pass that off as some sort of competition is just like bullshit. So, but again, we're looking at a difference between what is the masculinity, what is the, for lack of a better term, what is the masculine energy that is like sort of the machismo side of the male serving masculinity versus a female serving masculinity. And if you listen to guys like Scott Galloway, it only serves that female imperative. And that's where we kind of come full circle into female solipsism, because guys like Scott Galloway feed into that solipsism because they say, this is how it should be. Women should be the primary thinkers, the primary targets, the primary predominant gender narrative of our 21st century should be about making women's lives better because men must serve, men must be on the plantation, men must become betas with a side of alpha, men must be, they don't even want betas. You know what they want? They want to build a better beta who thinks that his masculinity that serves the feminine imperative is the only masculinity there is. So when I'm talking about solipsism, how do women come to solipsism in the first place? Well, it's an evolved function is what it is. And I've talked about this on a couple of occasions when I talk about the big head babies theory. And the big head babies theory, I won't read you the whole thing. I'll just give it to you in a nutshell. The reason why women are the vulnerable sex is because they are the incubators of the next generation. That's why women are spoils of war. When one tribe goes in, conquers that other tribe, kills off all the men folk, kills off all the boys, in some cases kills off all the non-virgin women, depending on who's known a man and who hasn't, according to the Bible. And then they take the virgin women, or women who are still of fertile breeding age, and they integrate those women back into the females of their own tribe. That's why women tend to have a psyche that is more predisposed towards egalitarianism, or as Hillary Clinton will say, it takes a village to raise a kid, right? Well, that's the collectiveness. That's why women are predisposed towards collectivism, or to communitarianism. That's a better term for it. And I was just looking at this a minute ago here. I'm going to explain this to you here in just a second. I will explain how that interlocks with woke culture in just a moment. But women are the vulnerable sex. And if you think about it this way, the reason why women are the vulnerable sex, and the reason why we have such, sort of, especially in the 21st century right now, we have such disparities between the genders right now, is because human babies have gigantic heads, because humans rely on our intelligence. I know that sounds kind of strange today, but we rely on our intelligence. We don't have claws. We don't have antlers. We don't have sharp teeth. We're actually don't even have really much fur. We're just sort of like, what does Mike say? We're hairless murder apes. That's what we are. I went on Mid Journey and I typed in hairless murder ape to see what it would give me.
Have you seen them?
It's pretty great.
Yoked.
Yeah, it was pretty great. So women in our ancestral past, when we were living in hunter-gatherer tribes, women would be pregnant most of the time. We had to populate the earth. Now, I know that sounds a little weird today when we have like the fertility crisis that we have, but that's how it works. And so if a girl or a young woman was to have children, she was pregnant most of her life, or certainly for her fertile years. And so what that necessitated was a male who was invested in parentally invested in that child, right? And so what that means is, like, if you think about it this way, the amount of things that can kill a pregnant female or a nursing female, or even just one that's just has one kid in hand and the next one is coming in, the buns in the oven kind of thing, or whatever, is that nurturing, trying to, because she's basically watching after the children, while the man goes out and hunts and brings the food back and, brings the resources back, because we need more calories, because calories were really the coin of the realm back then. And so the man has to that woman has to pair with a guy who can protect, provide, and provision for her, as well as be able to kick ass and defend against invading tribes and, maybe the occasional saber-toothed tiger. So it would behoove a woman to prioritize her own survival over everything else. So when I talk about the war brides dynamic, for example, when I was asked, when I was sort of formulating the idea, or the hypothesis, the dynamic anyways of war brides, it was because so many guys had come up to me and they said, "Rollo, I can't understand why my girlfriend or my ex-girlfriend got over me so quickly, and now she's with this new dude." I said, well, it's a function of evolution. Women in our ancestral past had to be able to resolve the conflict, or the cognitive dissonance of being taken as a spoil of war and integrated into another tribe. So the women who developed the psychological mechanisms to get over the fact that their kids and their husband had been killed, and now they are in a new tribe by their conquerors. Well, now the women who fell in love with their conquerors, like Stockholm syndrome, the women who fell in love with their conquerors were the ones that survived and moved on to the next generation. What did I just say about bonobos and gorillas? When that one gorilla is defeated, the females don't want to have sex with him anymore, and they seek out the conqueror. They want to fuck the guy who killed their children. They want to go and fuck the guy, or the male bonobo, or the male gorilla that essentially killed off their kids. Well, again, that sounds very fucked up. It's how, and from an ethical and a moralistic perspective, you are 100% right to say that's really fucked up. Female solipsism is a really fucked up dynamic, Rollo. We need to find some sort of social mechanism to buffer that, or to maintain that, or keep an eye, keep checks and balances on that, Rollo. And I will go, yes, you're 100% right, and it's never going to happen in the 21st century. It did prior to the sexual revolution. That's why we had stigmas against single mothers. That's why we had the church. That's why we had marriage. That's why, which is basically just a formalized version of socially enforced monogamy. That's why we had checks and balances right up until one invention, hormonal birth control, and then everything went. All bets were off. That's when we went from a regulated market to a deregulated market. We had sexual freedom. That's the deregulated market. The regulated sexual society, right there, had checks and balances for hypergamy, for female solipsism, because it presumed patriarchy was the preeminent way of organizing society, because it was the most natural way of doing so for human males who were required, or who survived better and their children survived better if they provided, protected, and were parentally invested. But the thing is they also had the authority of being bigger, badder, stronger, and had the capability, or had the capacity for violence. And that was expected. The side of the masculinity equation that good old Scott Galloway says, well, one side's good and one side's bad. The problem with that is one side cannot coexist without the other. You don't get the good side, the quote unquote female beneficial side, without the side that also benefits the male. This is exactly what I talk about when I say today that men are 100% responsible for women, but they have 0% authority. Because we think in terms of, like Scott Galloway is talking about right now, that the authority side of masculinity, the side of masculinity that would take action, that would kick ass and take names, that would jump off a fucking gigantic cliff and go cliff diving down into the fucking water, that side of masculinity is just as necessary as the side of masculinity that would serve a female imperative, go in and save the baby from the burning building. You don't get one without the other. The problem is we have been acculturated and socialized for the last 4 fucking generations in a post-sexual revolution society that says men need to get in touch with their feelings. They need to be more feminine. They need to express themselves. They need to be more like walls. Fuck you. The reason we're in the shitstorm that we're in right now, the reason why guys are fucking opting out is because of that shit right there. Because you prioritized this, feminine approved version of masculinity while saying the other side is toxic or corrupt or there's something wrong. Or in the case of the APA, it's a fucking personality disorder. You want to know why we're fucked right now as a society? You want to know where'd it go? Let me go grab this guy's comment again. Here you go. You want to know why woke culture is an inevitable end of gynocentrism? That's it. Woke culture is female culture. It is 100% inspired by a female imperative. It is gynocentric. Wokesy stuff, I will challenge you. Show me any kind of issue that the wokesy side of things versus sort of the base side of things. I don't even know what the opposite even word is these days. Show me some wokesy issue, and I will show you how it is inspired by and how it serves a female imperative. Guaranteed. Show me any fucking issue. Guaranteed. Even when I'm talking about, like, say, somebody like Dr. Richard Reeves, who is part of the Brookings Institute, very much dyed-in-the-wool liberally kind of thing. Even liberals cannot escape the fact that we have something really going wrong with our boys and our men today. They can't get away from that. In fact, they're making a good chunk of change off of what they accuse the red pill of talking about and making money off of for a long time. Well, they're trying to exploit these guys. I'll tell you what, they're not doing anything different than what the rest of these guys are. They're just solutions are different. Their prescriptions are different. My prescription is fucking man the fuck up and be a man and be positively, conventionally masculine for the sake of you. For the benefit of the man, because that again goes back to mental point of origin. It goes back to enlightened self-interest. I can't help others until I can help myself. I can't help others as well as when I help myself first. That's the Trump, Hulk Hogan professional wrestling side of it. That's the self-important side of being masculine. That's what that is. But you know what? I can't go and help, I can't provide women with the better life that you think that they're fucking owed. I can't even do that until I can help myself first. And I have to help myself for myself, not because I want to, solve the problems of women. Because if I do that, you get fucked for that. And you know why guys are dropping out and guys don't want to play ball and they don't want to go along with this 20th century life plan anymore? That's why, because you keep telling these guys that they need to man up for the sake of women, not for themselves. And the minute you guys change that fucking narrative, things are going to change for you. But they'll never do that because it doesn't align with the feminized, wokesy narrative. That's why. And that's why these guys are a net negative for men. They are a net negative for masculinity. And these problems will continue. And the only reason we're even having this fucking question right now, or having this conversation right now, is because all politics are gender politics right now. Especially as we get even just this inch that much closer. You want to know why there's an NGO, and I'm on some fucking watch list with Aaron Clary and the rest of these guys from Diverting Hate, because they think that guys like me are going to radicalize guys to go and vote for Trump. That's really what the bottom line is. And I don't even have to do that because they're doing it naturally. There's already, I don't know how many fucking articles I have read just recently about how the gender divide is a political divide. Women are going to vote for Kamala Harris. Men are going to vote for Trump. Who's going to predominate? Well, if it was just down to men and women voting, Kamala Harris is going to win because there's more women than there are men. There are more female voters than there are male voters. And the female voters that there are far more active than the male voters. So if Rollo Tomasi and the red pill and all this other stuff is a gateway to becoming more conservative and to voting for a more conservative candidate, in this case, male, then that's why you want to know why they have to have contingencies. You want to know why organizations like Progressive Victory want to have me put out of fucking business. Why you have the McCain Institute, the DHS, Diverting Hate, all these, and that's just one NGO. There's other NGOs as well, are in collusion with fucking YouTube and yes, even Elon Musk and Twitter to like redirect traffic. It's because they don't want you to hear what I have to say, because if what I'm saying is in some way some sort of gateway for you to actually to register as a Republican and vote for Trump, that's an existential threat to them. That's why I have to be silenced. That's why Ryan Stone has to be silenced, and Aaron Clary and Myron and even Sandman. Jesus Christ, we're all in this fucking same. But how do we get in this? How do I get in this boat? How do I get in the bus with fucking Sandman? Is what I want to know, right? Yeah, I mean, nothing against the guy, but like, I haven't even heard that name in fucking years. Rolo, risky behavior and pushing the limits is proven to be euphoria like sensation produced by testosterone while working out. Yeah, I believe it. It's like a runner's high, man. Totally. Yeah. So solipsism in women is a selected for mechanism because women have to be able to think of themselves. It goes back to enlightened self-interest. That's all it is. It's an innate way of thinking about yourself first. One of the reasons why I think it was Camille Paglia said we raise our boys as if they're defective girls. We didn't used to do that. But when she was talking about that and she was bringing that up, saying, who are their teachers? The teachers are primarily female. If you grew up in the United States and all you'd ever did was go to, even private school, but if you go to public school your entire life, odds are your teachers, at least 77, maybe 78% of them are going to be female. They're going to teach you from a female specific perspective and a female specific approach. We do the same thing when we say, oh, well, men need therapy. We need to be concerned with men's mental health. And I'm not saying we do. I'm just saying that the solution in the prescriptions isn't to diagnose them and to give them therapy that would work for females. We won't even know. We can't even broach the subject of the fact that men might have might process emotions differently than women do. It's not even an afterthought for guys like Scott Galloway. It's not even an afterthought for a female mindset. No, it works for women. It must work for guys because we're all the fucking same. No, we're not. That's the blank slate that you've been clinging to way after it's been disproven. So you know, I until we start prioritizing men and prioritizing masculinity and all in its most broadest sense, in its conventional sense, until men are given, we take the power back, until we fucking take the authority back. And that's the thing, is like when I kept talking about, like, in an idealized sense, patriarchy is a much more balanced system than any other system we have, because patriarchy it is the balance between responsibility to your wife, to your children, and having, whether it's you know, it's a good thing or a bad thing, right? It used to be back in the day, back in the coverture law era, like in the 1800s, probably even before that, if a man takes a wife, he is responsible for that wife's actions. So if that wife bankrupts the company, he's the one that they go to. If that wife or that child commits a criminal act, he's the one who's on the hook. Not the kids are too, but he's the one because he's the one who should be responsible for them. He's the one who takes the 50 lashes. Okay? So men used to have to be responsible for their house and their family and everything else, and maybe even their extended family. Right now, I'm a patriarch. I really am, because I take care of my mother-in-law. I take care of people who are outside of my immediate family. My mom and my dad are gone, but I took care of my mom for certainly in her last days, certainly for probably the last decade of her life, right? Because that's what I'm supposed to. It's in the Bible, right? You know, to honor thy mother and thy father. Take care of your parents. I would hope my kids take care of me at some point, but I don't see that. I'm going to die in a fiery car crash, so don't worry about it. I'm going to listening to Angel of Death and Slayer, and yeah, that's going to happen, so you don't have to worry about that. But I would like to think that might be a possibility. I'll probably be eating cat food in a trailer park in Reno somewhere. but the idea is sound, and a patriarch is a guy who has that responsibility to his family, but he also has a commensurate amount of authority, so he can affect what he needs to be responsible to the fucking family in the first place. And this is the way shit used to be prior to the sexual revolution, when we had a regulated sexual marketplace. We don't have that anymore, and I don't see us going back to that anytime, and I don't see any kind of like conventional patriarchy ever making a resurgence anytime. We can only go forward. So we can only take the best of what we know from the past and then make it into something that has a use and a utility into the future right now. That's why I keep telling you guys there's no such thing as a fucking pendulum. The pendulum isn't going to swing back to the 1950s, okay? God forbid. Right? You can't back your way into the future. You have to just simply go forward. Take the best of what you know from the past and then carry it forward and use that as sort of the basis for new things. But there is no swing back in the good old days. We're going to go back to the golden era, this romanticized era that never really existed in the first place. It's bullshit. And the more you sort of vacillate on this stuff, I'm sick to fucking death of hearing this stupid meme. Like, what is it? Weak men create bad times. Bad times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Blah, 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 blah. People really, really desperately want this circle of thing. And so, well, how are we like you? How will you even ever know that you're in the good times? Because your good times are the bad times for somebody else. Guarantee it. It's bullshit. You only go forward. You only progress. You take what you know, you take what works from the past, and you take it and you go forward. And you're pragmatic about the whole fucking thing. So this idea that we're going to have we're going to return to some golden era that's propaganda. That's an idea to get you that's selling you something. And the minute you can sort of disabuse yourself of this idea of going back to some golden era, is the minute you'll actually make some progress, is the moment we'll go, okay, we're not going back to that. I've accepted that. Let's take what we know and let's use this into the future for our own benefit. Fan-fucking-tastic. Maybe we go to some new kind of patriarchy. Maybe we go to some new kind of thing. When people constantly keep saying this, Rollo, don't you think we should repeal the 19th Amendment? No, I don't think so, because I think it's untenable. You're not going to do it. And you know who's going to fight you? It's not going to be women. It's going to be other guys. It's going to be men who fight you. It's not going to be women who fight. They'll fight you too, but it'll be men, because it is men who enforce rights. women don't enforce rights. Women aren't the ones out there because men are the ones who, it's violence, man. Men, ultimately, when it comes down to violence, men are the ones who perpetrate the violence. And boy, ask any feminist, whether it's men who do, the majority of, violent acts, they'll tell you, yes, those violent acts are also what enforces your rights. So keeping that in mind, you're not going back. You can only go forward. And I'll tell you this right now, and tell people like Scott Galloway and Matt Walsh and the rest of these shill trad cons, accept the fact that men have 0% authority and 100% responsibility, which is the definition of slavery, until they can see that, until they can say men need to be men and they need to be better men for the sake of being better men, not to solve women's problems. Because right now, when I keep saying that, the conservatives are some of the biggest feminists you will ever know. That's what I'm pointing out. You know why? Because they buy into female solipsism. Women are women's existence, women's experience, women's lives are what drives their ideology, drives their religion, drives their decisions, drives what they think is the right thing to say on their podcasts. Everything comes back to female solipsism. That's a priority. Women deserve a better life. And you're falling down on the job unless you fucking provide it. So, we got two more. Where does that go? Here we go. Rational redneck. I love that. Yeehaw. Justin Walker. I've been substitute teaching. I remember standing on the playground with a group of female teachers complaining about how the boys rough housing and thinking, why is this a problem? Yeah, it's a problem because they're not learning like girls. Let's drug them. Let's give them Ritalin. Let's calm them down. Calm down, boys. Here, pop these pills. You'll be fine.
They almost put me on Ritalin.
Really?
Yeah, because I have
in public school. Did you go to public school?
Yeah, I went to public school.
Oh wow.
I was like almost at the point of skipping 2 or 3 grades from grade 3. So I was in 3rd grade. I was going to go straight to 6th grade.
Were you disrupting the class?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was.
Did they not give you enough recess?
No, they didn't. I would make my own gang in school, and we would
Your
have our
own
own
gang. Los vatos.
We had to do sand plant tattoos.
What do you see in your crystal ball for the future of gynocentrism? Well, I'm glad you asked. What is in the future for gynocentrism? Well, all right, it has to be like a yes or no kind of question here. Let's see. Okay, well, we have a magic 8 ball here at the Rational Male. This is our logo, by the way. We don't have a crystal ball, but this is about it. Let's see what the future. We have the magic conch, but we have to ask kind of a yes or no question, though. So, will the future be gynocentric? Let's go that. Here we go. Now the magic conch. Cannot predict now. Yeah, we're going to ask this on November 6th. Magic conch. Yes. Do you think that the future will be brighter? Do you think that we are headed for a gynocentric future or an androcentric future? Okay. So no. So the magic conch says not happening. Okay. So there will be no gynocentric future. Got it. Yeah, it's got to be it has to be a yes or no answer. By the way, so this is the Rational Male way of sort of dividing the future, and this is the cultivate crypto. This is the dollar cost crypto way. These two decide the fate of the human race. Oh no! Oh my God! Yes, I always have the 8 ball. It was the 8 ball came with me from Reno. Are you kidding? I made sure I packed that thing right, nice and tight. Yes. Okay. So as far as solipsism is concerned, with should we read the rest of this? I wonder if I should just read the rest of this to you. Yeah, okay. I guess maybe I could read some of this to you. Female solipsism in and of itself is not necessarily a net negative in the large scope of human survival or evolution. I want to point that out too. When I talk, I think a lot of people, and I love you, Myron, but sometimes I even catch Myron sort of like, but people think that solipsism is inherently negative. It's not. It's like hypergamy. Okay, hypergamy is not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. In fact, the human race has benefited because women are hypergamous. Right? They want something better. Why wouldn't they? Right? It's a survival instinct. So hypergamy is not good or bad in any particular sense. It just is. So the same thing applies to solipsism, because women who are solipsistic are going to be more self-concerned. They're going to be more self-important. They're going to apply that solipsism not only to themselves, but also to their offspring as well. So if the world exists and only revolves around women, or the idea of enlightened self-interest, for example, I can't help others until I can help myself. The problem is it only stops at I can't help my kids until I can help myself with women, right? But it's simply a form of solipsism, and it's something I have come to find is something of an innate aspect to female psyches, right? And carried to its absurd extreme, that's how you get Scott Galloway, that's how you get Matt Walsh, that's how you get Ben Shapiro and the rest of these. And by the way, I would add them to the same list as sort of the wokesies that are trying to sort of feed into this as well. Like when I talk about how everyone is a feminist, it's everybody is. If you were born after 1965, there is some sort of feminist ideology that is sort of inherent to your personality, whether you realize it or not. So if I go and I say, for instance, if I say, men, you don't owe women a better life. If I say that, then there's that sort of, kind of, what's he talking about? That kind of cringy kind of feeling that you get. Why are you getting that? Why would you feel that? Well, because on some level of consciousness, it doesn't sound like it's right. Why? Why does it not sound like it's right? Why does it sound bad for men to prioritize their needs above women's needs? Those guys, and I mean this in the most sincere sense, why is that a bad thing for guys to put themselves before women? We're told this in like no uncertain terms, whether it's like our upbringing in public schools or through religion or through pop culture or popular pop psychology. We're told that women's needs should come before men's. Why is that? Well, it goes back to the innate male protector dynamic. Women are the vulnerable sex, men are the disposable sex. If we want to, like, what is it? Eggs are expensive, sperm is cheap. Like, we can go all the way back down to the cellular level if you'd like. But the fact of the matter is that women have to have some sort of deference to male authority in our evolutionary past anyways, if they wanted to survive. And the women who had more of a more self-importance were the ones who were going to survive over the ones who didn't. So like I said, if women were taken as spoils of war and the war brides dynamic, the ones who could accept that, and the ones who could like resolve that cognitive dissonance were the ones who reproduced and went and made more babies with another tribe, right? So women whose primary focus, their mental point of origin was innately themselves. I always say this when we talk about men having that a mental point of origin sort of crushed out of them. We don't do that for women. In fact, we don't even think it's a right thing to do. Women need to think about men before they think about themselves. Who is saying that today? Maybe in a third world undeveloped country, but certainly not in Western nations right now. And it hasn't been that way since, well, certainly the sexual revolution. So I love it when people keep telling me that we still live in this sort of patriarchal society that's being like, crushing the spirits of women. It's like, no, it's not. It hasn't been that way for over 70 some odd years now. So female solipsism in and of itself is not necessarily a net negative in the larger scope of human survival and evolution. On the surface, that may seem a bit outrageous, but it's only outrageous insofar as women's solipsistic natures come into conflict with the biological and social imperatives of men. This solipsism is the necessary result of a feminine survival instinct that's helped preserve women and their offspring in a violent, chaotic, and uncertain evolution or environment, right? Recognizing the importance of feminine solipsism is not an endorsement of the antisocial and often cruel byproducts of it. Okay, so I have to stick those things in, those caveats in there. Remember, I'm writing this in 2015 because I know what's going to happen. People are going to go, oh, so he thinks it's a good thing that women are solipsistic. Oh, that's immoral. It's, what's funny is I'll give you a quick example. There was in Holland and in France in post-war, right after World War II, and they Nazi occupied France and Holland. There were women who would get with the officers of the German army or whatever, because they were making a bet. They were taking a calculated risk. They thought that Germany was going to win the war. And so what did they do? They fell in love with the officers and the soldiers. And some of them might have had kids. Other ones didn't. They were just like, trying to get favor. They were good looking girls. They wanted to get with who they believed was going to be the conquering tribe that was coming in to destroy their fucking country. Right. Well, it didn't work out that way. So what did they do in the Netherlands and what did they do in France? Pretty much the same thing. They would drag all these women out to the public square and they would viciously cut their hair off with big old shuck scissors, like they're fucking shearing sheep, right? I mean, and probably hurt them quite a bit, right? And to publicly humiliate them for essentially betraying the tribe, for going against their kin. But from a solipsistic perspective and from a hypergamous perspective, they did what they thought was the right. It was a bad call, but when you have that as part of female nature, like that, here's the other thing: the Vichy French, the ones who sided with the Germans and anyone else, the men, they were just simply shot. They're publicly executed. They just kill them. But we preserve the women. We don't kill the women because we think that they know better, right? Or they don't know better. They're children, right? They didn't know any better. They fucked the Germans, right? They're sleeping with literally sleeping with the enemy. So we're just going to publicly humiliate them. Oh, you're a male collaborator? Thanks, bye. That was because men are disposable, women are the protected sex, women are the vulnerable sex. They're the incubators of the next generation. That's why. And so with that in mind, so if we're willing to like not kill women who essentially betrayed the tribe, but we will kill men, how does that feed into female solipsism over the years? Right? Well, I'm not going to get killed if I go and do this. I betray the tribe. And women will do this because throughout history, again, the war brides dynamic, throughout history, women had to resolve that cognitive dissonance of having their entire tribe killed off and then taken as spoils of war by the conquering tribe. So that's how they could much more easily come to the conclusion that they're taking a calculated risk. It didn't pay off. They got their hair shorn off. Okay, shame, brief amount of shame, and maybe for the rest of their lives, or as long as they lived in that town, they'd be shamed. But then, life goes on. Not for the guy. Life doesn't go on for the Vichy French men, of course. So keep that in mind. No doubt, men who have been on the sharp end of this will grind their teeth at the inevitable narcissism that becomes an extension of women's solipsism. I'll agree. Socially, we're living in an era of unprecedented Western narcissism manifested by a majority of women. We see this narcissism on display on whatever podcast, on Fresh and Fit, hell, sometimes on my show, so on Access Vegas. We see narcissism constantly in women, expressed by order of degree. Now, of course, it's men who are accused of being the narcissists when a breakup happens. But the thing is when taken to its absurd extreme, solipsism can become narcissism, but solipsism itself is not narcissism. Solipsism is a self-preservation mental schema, whereas narcissism is taking that to an unhealthy degree. So, I know at the time in history have women become more accustomed to perceived entitlements of personal security, ubiquitous social control, and relative assurances of optimizing hypergamous imperatives. At no other time have women's sexual strategies been of such primary importance to society. As I was saying, we don't owe you a better life. However, this narcissism is the result of an acculturation and learned social priorities that predispose women to expectations that border on arrogance or hubris. I've used the term. Over recent generations, that narcissism has become learned and fostered in women to the point that narcissism is openly embraced as a feminine strength. Women believe that it is their due after a long suffrage. So, we're going to get what we get because we've been enslaved and oppressed by men for as long as we have. So if we get a little extra now, or if we have to, For equity to be achieved, men must be actively disadvantaged. If that's the case, then so be it, because my sisters in the past have been oppressed by you guys. Women's solipsistic nature, however, is an integral part of their evolved psychological firmware. Solipsism is the evolved, selected for result of self-preservation necessities that ensured the survival of our species. As men, we get frustrated by this intrinsic nature, a nature that puts women's imperatives as their primary mental point of origin. As any newly aware red pill man will attest, coming to this realization is a very hard truth to accept. It's cruel and contrary to what the first set of books, the old blue pill rules, have taught him, and he should expect to build his life around them. As I said before, the only reason you hear these guys talk about man up is because they want you to man up so that you can solve women's problems, meaning be a better husband, be a better slave. Furthermore, it's cruel in the respect that this solipsism neither aligns with the romantic blue pill hopes he's been raised to accept, but also the egalitarian, equal, and level playing field ideology he's been conditioned to believe he should alter his priorities to accommodate for women. And in turn, he can expect this from women as well, which is bullshit. As I stated earlier, coming to terms with men and women's differing concepts of love is a tough disillusionment, but this difference in concept is simply one of many a man must come to terms with. So I'll just keep it at that. Get an idea. So when I'm talking about solipsism for women and the idea of women's sort of mental point of origin is always going to be about themselves. I don't think women actually struggle with mental point of origin unless they have like endured some like really tough shit when they were growing up. If they were like sort of mentally abused by I would say probably by their mothers, but unless women are going through like have had a really tough childhood, I think we encourage women to put themselves as their mental point of origin. As Rich Cooper has said in the past, we teach women, we tell men and women, or boys and girls, different things. We tell girls, you do what's right for you, girl. And we tell men, do the right thing. That is an expression of female solipsism right there, or prioritizing the female mental point of origin over the male point of origin. So when we tell a woman, you do what's right for you, you're saying you should be the first thing that comes into your mind whenever you have to make a decision. As I keep telling everybody about, I'm trying to be as clear and as specific as I possibly can when it comes to mental point of origin. We systematically crush this out of every young male in Western society right now. We tell them that to be serviceable, to be a servant leader, whether it's in church or it's in the public space, or it's in school, or it's in pop culture, or it's in pop psychology. The message is always the same. Men need to be serviceable. You need a purpose in life, and men do need a purpose in life. They do. But usually that purpose is to serve a female imperative, not the male imperative. And when men say, fuck that, I'm going to serve my own interests instead of the interests of women or instead of the interests of other people, we call that guy a narcissist. We call that guy self-important. We call him Machiavellian or psychopathic or whatever, dark triad, right? We say he's a Machiavellian, sociopath, and a narcissist. Right? All the things that attract women, that systematic, that are proven to turn women on, all those things, we crush all of those things out. We say those are undesirable. That's why I keep saying we should not term dark triad personality traits as dark. They are not dark. All it is semantics at this point. Narcissism, well, to have a healthy self-respect, to actually want to do things for yourself instead of doing them for others. Oh, that's antisocial. Okay, you can look at it those ways. But when we teach women the exact opposite, no one has a problem with that because women are wonderful. Right? We shouldn't be able to, we don't want to talk shit about women. We don't want to, God forbid, you don't want to know why the red pill catches so much shit these days is because we dare to point out or hold up a mirror, whatever you want to call it. We dare to illustrate and expose the fact that there's some pretty unflattering aspects of female nature. If you do that, You are either a narcissist, you're a prick, you're one of those red pill guys, you're an incel, whatever else, or oh yeah, but men do it too. We got to find some way to caveat it. We got to find some way to say, well, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. No, it's not. We're only talking about women right now. Nobody ever wants to have that conversation. Fuck God. But the idea of doing things for yourself and having mental, like that's what I keep saying. That's why I'm very, very clear when I talk about mental point of origin for men. It's not this Tony Robbins like, yeah, man, make yourself your first priority. Fuck you. It's way deeper than that. It's learning new mental subroutines, I guess. Maybe that's a better way to put it. So that when you're faced with a decision, or it could be the most minor decision or the most major decision, that whatever new stimuli comes into your awareness, you are the first thing you think about. Not, how's this going to affect my wife? How's this going to affect my family? How's this going to affect mom? How's this going to affect my girlfriend, my future girlfriend, whatever? Because when you think of anything outside of yourself, you're not making yourself your own mental point of origin, and you're making someone else your mental point of origin. And you probably learned that as a man. You probably learned that from a female teacher or from a feminized male teacher, so that you can be serviceable. Your highest expectation, your highest glory as a man is to be able to serve the collective. And that collective is the sisterhood, is the gynocentrism. It's the female imperative. So when you learn those mental models as a 5-year-old kid or whatever, wherever you learn them when you were a child, if you learn those mental models, that's why you want to know why people get the weird feeling when I say you don't owe women a better life. That's where that comes from, because it goes against everything you've ever learned from the time you were like 5 years old, and you're this little mental sponge, as you know, little Johnny's 5 years old. Yeah, of course it does. But for guys who haven't lost that sort of sense of self and that sense of self-importance, you can call it arrogance if you want. I don't give two flying fucks, whatever you want to call it, narcissism, arrogant. The only reason we come up with dark triad, or we come up with negative connotations for those terms, is because we don't want men to think for themselves. We only want them to do what's beneficial for females, for ensuring the human race, right? For making sure that babies get born. The thing is, you know, nature doesn't care how babies are born. It cares that babies are born. So when I'm talking about dark triad, I don't think we should call them the dark triad traits anymore. I think the only reason we called them that is so we could keep men in line. Who are, like, when we talk about Machiavellianism and we talk about sociopathy and we talk about narcissism, what sex comes to mind when we bring those qualities up? Just if we were going to assign those to one or the other, which one do you think is going to get it the most? Come on, man.
I don't know. I think it's non-binary.
Yeah, what do you think in terms of male and female? And the demi boy. Like a fucking cartoon character. Yeah. Who do we think of? We think of guys, for fuck's sake. We think of Tinder swindler. Like when women break up with a guy, what's the first thing they say? He was a narcissist. Oh, so he had dark triad traits, and that's really what turned you on in the first place, and made you want to fuck him in the first place, right? Because really, that's what, like, I have to laugh when I hear that, because like we have had so many girls on Access Vegas and say, well, how come you're not with your guy anymore? He was a narcissist. Oh, so one of the dark triad traits that turns you. And by the way, narcissism is one of like the highly attractive parts of that too. You know, you could say, well, was he Machiavellian? And women would be like, Machiavellian? But they fucking know narcissism. They know exactly what you mean, because women understand solipsism, and they understand how solipsism can develop into narcissism. They've seen it in their girlfriends. They've probably seen it in themselves. So when they see it in a guy, or something that even just sort of like smacks of it or smells like narcissism, you're a narcissist. No, he's not actually a narcissist. But I think it's really telling that that's the thing that sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. No, it's not. The narcissism that also turns you on enough to want to fuck him on a daily basis is also the narcissism why you are no longer with him anymore. It's not dark. It's not a dark triad trait. It was after he broke up with you, then it's a dark triad trait. But beforehand, it's like, God, man, he's just so self-confident and cocky. I just want to fuck this guy. Speaking of solipsism and assuming she shows IOIs, indicators of interest, is it better to make your intentions obvious or be kind of apathetic to make her show her interest? Hope I am making sense. Yeah, you are making sense. If she's showing you IOIs already, then you can only fuck it up from there. You don't want to be apathetic. I hate that term too. Like people say, well, you got to be aloof. No, you don't want to be aloof. No, you want amused mastery is what you want. That's actually the answer to your question. It's not to be apathetic, like, oh yeah, I could, yeah, like you feign disinterest. Don't feign disinterest. There's a much healthier technique. If you want technique, you want like best practices here. You can find this, by the way, in where did it go? Hold on. You could find this in this wonderful book right here, The Player's Handbook, available on Amazon. It's the #1 bestseller in dating. It was, anyways, when it first came out. There was a book that was like, by the way, dating as a category on Amazon is one of the if not the #1 most impacted category. Wow. And I got #1 on it when I put that out there. Yeah. And you know who I knocked off? Who? I knocked that bitch off. It says "Why Men Love Bitches" or something like that was the name of the book. It got like two months later, it came back on, but I was at the top of the game for like 6 weeks, and I pushed that bitch off for like #2 and #3. Proudest day of my life. But no, I was going to say in the Player's Handbook, there's a chapter in there called Amused Mastery. So this is actually what you're asking. Don't be apathetic. You don't need to be aloof. You don't have to be a prick. What you need to be is practice amused mastery, meaning like you've seen it all and you understand what she's about, and you're playing the game with her, and you're playing the game with her. Okay. So that's actually the question you are asking me. Again, that's in the book. Dylan Curry. Wait a minute.
How dare you?
Oops, that's not the one I want. I'll give it to Dylan Curry. How dare you? Where's my other ones? I got this. I got another. Let's see. Dylan Curry. There you go. Thinking of making a YouTube channel looking at true crime through a red pill lens, similar to your segment on the female teacher grapers. Do you think true crime needs this sort of commentary? Yeah, I think, well, quite honestly, I think any niche needs this commentary.
I think we talked about this.
Yeah, we have. I think I actually talked about this before. Yeah, sure. Fiction needs a red pill lens. True crime needs a red pill lens. There's a lot of things that need to sort of be contextualized. Just say I would definitely support that. Reminds me of the movie Heat, 30-second rule. Okay, movie Heat. I haven't seen Heat.
Heat is such a good movie.
I haven't seen that in a long time. I still don't remember the 30-second rule. That's been a while.
I used to train people how to reload with the scene in Heat.
Yeah,
it was so realistic.
Yeah. Did I miss any? I don't think I got to everybody today already so far. I wanted to point out a couple other things here too. I think getting back to the war brides dynamic and solipsism is sort of important, because those go hand in hand together. If you want to know why solipsism is a thing, look no further than the war brides dynamic. It's simply, I think a lot of the stuff that when I talk about it, again, do I have research to like, I love this. Show me the research, Rolo, that proves that women are solipsistic. Well, I can give you the Instagram. There's your research. Instagram is one. Tinder. There you go. There's another one. You'll see the problem that I have with this is like, and I think a lot of guys do too, is you'll see these guys who want to sort of backpedal and soft sell things that, especially if they find something that they're trying to do that is sort of counter to the red pill, they'll try to find some way to caveat it, like put a caveat on there, right? Do I have empirical hard data from peer-reviewed studies, meta studies over the course of 10, 20 plus years with accredited researchers from, peer-reviewed and independently funded at major universities and published in psychological, preeminent psychological journals? No, I don't. I'm just saying that, and by the way, this goes for a lot of concepts in the red pill. I'm just saying that these make sense, okay, from observation or from, it could be from hard data. I mean, I can move through some hard data stuff here too, if you'd like.
There's a lot of anecdotal evidence.
Here's another good one, okay? Porn featuring violence against women is also extremely popular amongst women. It is far more popular among women than men. I hate saying that because misogynists seem to love this fact. Fantasy isn't always politically correct. Okay, well, but the thing is it doesn't. I love how that, again, that's putting a caveat in it. By the, I'll just show you these. Why don't I just go through these? These are actually pretty good. Let me share the screen here. This is from my folder on female nature. And that, just so you know where I'm pulling this from, among the top Pornhub searches by women is a genre of pornography that, I warn you, will disturb many readers. Sex featuring violence against women. Fully 25% of female searches for straight porn emphasize the pain and or humiliation of the woman, painful anal crying, public disgrace, and extreme brutal gangbang. For example, 5% look for non-consensual sex, rape, or forced sex, even though these videos are banned on Pornhub. And search rates for all of these terms are at least twice as common amongst women and as among men. If there is a genre of porn in which violence is perpetrated against a woman, my analysis of the data shows that it almost always appeals disproportionately to women. Another uncomfortable, unflattering fact about women's preferences when it comes to sexual fantasies. What else do I have here? Women brag on Twitter more than men do. We have presented the first large-scale quantitative, not qualitative, quantitative study of bragging on social media based on more than 1 million English Twitter posts from users in the United States. This shows that bragging is a common occurrence in original tweets from US users, with users bragging on average 1 out of 9 of their tweets. Wow. Gender is significantly correlated with bragging, and the sense of female users brag more than male users. Wow. This is consistent with the findings of previous studies, there were, related to self-presentation and how it can be explained by the fact that women show more interest in developing friendships online, which can be accomplished by a positive self-presentation, i.e. bragging. Users with higher education levels tend to brag more. Okay. So the smarter the bitch, the more she brags. Wow, we need a study for this. Okay. This might be explained by the fact that users with higher education level tend to express more joy, which could include self-disclosure statements. I just got a new car. Furthermore, people with higher education mention others, e.g. their, when bragging. This is in contrast with lower educated users who focus on their personal traits, possessions, and activities. I, my, look, got. Those are the words they would use. Users who are more popular on Twitter are likely to brag more. Looking at you, Lauren Chen. That's pretty great. Women care more about a greater number of characteristics when considering sexual attractiveness in a potential mate, with highly educated women more keen on looks. There's one for you. Let's see. Psychopathy was associated with a higher number of children in men, but not women. So let's see. That psychopathy, one of the dark triad traits, ladies. You're going to fuck that guy more, and he's going to have more kids. Because it's psychopathy. He's a psychopath. Women love narcissists, psychopaths, and Machiavellian sons of bitches. They love it. Love every bit of it, right? I mean, it is quantitative, right? StatCloud was good. Only 2% of married and unmarried women in America believe that mothers should be the breadwinners of the household. Wow. Mothers should most likely provide financial for the family, according to 1.2% of married women and 0% of unmarried women. 0%. That's tough. Not even a point. And 1.3% of unmarried men. Wow.
I wonder what the pool is for that.
No, that was good. More relationships are formed on The Bachelorette than on The Bachelor, confirming evolutionary psychology's emphasis on female choice. God, that's so good. Oh, by the way, this one right here, Brad Wilcox was it? Keep saying that genes are okay. Well, this was like a thing for marriage. Brad Wilcox is like this tradcon guy who's all about Will Costello. Women, more so than men, had a greater propensity to engage in malevolent infidelity, i.e., using cheating as a form of revenge or cheating to cause pain for one's partner. So to actually get back at you for that. Oh, which leads me to this video right here. Where did it go? No, that's not it. Not the unhappy women one. Where did it go? Oh, maybe it's in the other one here. That's the longer version. I need the short version. It was Mac and Murphy. Is this it? No, that's not it. There's one I had from Mac. Here it is. Okay, this one. There you go.
People who cheat are driven by a desire for sexual variety that probably in males help to increase progeny. But other individuals cheat, for example, to mate switch, to obtain a different mate. They're with one woman and they want to be with a different woman, and the infidelity is the way that they facilitate that. And that's true of women as well.
Why not just break up first?
David Buss has a funny quote on this. He said, why would you quit your job before looking for a new one? Why would you dump your partner before seeing what else is out there?
Right.
Women and men both mate switch. And some scientists think that the main reason women cheat is to mate switch.
What is the research saying on why women cheat?
Again, it's similar to men where we have these many functions. So women and men both cheat to mate switch to an extent. Women and men both cheat to, frankly, get revenge on their partners for infidelity. And there's some published research that indicates.
Yes, but as we've seen just a moment ago, this is kind of entirely false. Good to your good friend William Costello, right? Women, more so than men, had a greater propensity to engage in malevolent infidelity. Doesn't sound like you're telling the whole truth there, Mac.
Indicates that women might be more likely to cheat for revenge. And it's an open debate as to whether that's a genuine psychological tendency or whether it's just that they get cheated on more and so they have more opportunities to
not according to Will Costello.
Actually pursue that strategy.
Sure.
In some societies, such as the Himba of Namibia, this is an agro-pastoralist group. They have incredible rates of infidelity, much higher than we see in the West. Incredibly high rates of women's infidelity. The main reason, based on a few studies from Brooke Schelze and Sean Prahl, their work indicates that in that socio-ecological setting, the primary reason that women cheat is to obtain multiple investors. Now, we see women cheat for multiple investors in the West as well, but it looks a little different, right? This would be the case where the woman is dating one guy, right, and he's provisioning benefits to her in various ways, but maybe she's got kind of a sugar daddy.
Yeah, it's the OnlyFans plan is what it is. You tip me.
Type relationship on the side as well. And it's like boyfriends do lots of good things for you. And so if you have multiple boyfriends, you can have more of those good things, right?
Right.
Okay. So this is Mac and Murphy trying to backpedal on the fact that his team actually came up with the fact, actually discovered that most of that's not true. Actually, it's actually about the sex. It's actually about trading up to a more attractive partner. Made that case already, but I thought it's interesting. I wanted to point this out because you'll see a lot of these guys, as I was saying last week, this is an explicit bias against the red pill. And I think the thing that gets me is when these guys go on shows like this, or they go on like with Chris Williamson, then you get Chris Williamson repeating this bullshit or these half-truths or these incomplete statistics as if they are settled science. Now, I have been criticized recently about saying, well, no evolutionary psychologist or any scientist ever says settled science. I'm not saying that they do. I'm saying that that the people think that it's settled because it gets rebroadcast over and over and over and over again by very popular, big, heavy-hitting shows like Chris Williamson, like this. I forget the guy's name he's on with. Yeah. Because it keeps getting repeated. And if you repeat a lie long enough, what happens? It becomes a truth, or people believe that it's the truth. And the fact is so what happens is after a while, when that becomes sort of like, as I said, settled science. I didn't say it's settled science amongst the scientists. It's settled science amongst the people who listen to this over and over and over again. And like a guy like Chris Williamson isn't going to go sit there and try to sift through all of the counter confounding evidence and confounding research. He's just going to listen to somebody like this or Alex or somebody else come in. And of course, he's never going to talk to me or Mike Sartain for that matter. And we're not scientists. We're not, and we never proposed that. We never purported that we were. But the thing is like, if you hear this over and over and over again, that's going to be it. Now, what's funny is like just a week before, he's kind of backpedaling and trying to say, how they didn't find that dual mating strategy seems like actually the more likely strategy in all of the in infidelity too. By the way, I think we need to point out that this is a mating strategy within the confines of having a mated pair. It's within extra pair sex, right? Cheating. That's why this stuff you want to know why this stuff is sexy and people like repeat it over and over again? Because you use the word cheat. This is why women cheat. This is why men cheat. Well, what we don't do is we don't go and say, well, here's why, the dual mating strategy or alpha flux, beta bucks, however you whatever the vernacular is that you want to use. When the dual mating strategy is when I say it's a more complete mating strategy, that's because I'm saying it also encompasses everything that happened before you even got to the mated pair part of the whole fucking infidelity equation. But they don't want to hear that. They got to find some way to backpedal it. And this is, again, Mac and Murphy backpedaling it as well. So I think feminism in Germany serves as a female social convention and scapegoat to blame men and victimize, hence relieve women of the accountability for siding with the NS party during World War II. Solipsism. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. The solipsism side of all of this is, again, I think we need to sort of remember that solipsism itself isn't necessarily good or bad or unethical or moral or immoral. It just is what it is. The same thing with hypergamy. I hate, and I will seriously fight people who will try to mischaracterize hypergamy as being, oh, it's bad, it's evil, it's something, women, they turn it into a verb, right? She was hypergamying me. No, asshat. It is what it is. It's a subroutine that's running in the back. It's neither good nor it's bad. I'll tell you, it's good for? It's good for guys who are in the 4.5% who get fucked no matter what. They love I would love hypergamy if I was Justin Waller or fucking Scott Eichler or fucking.
So it's like an adjective.
Yeah, exactly. It just is. If you're in the 80th percentile, if you're the poor guy who's stocking shelves at CVS and you're invisible, yeah. Hypergamy really fucking sucks. But you know what? Hypergamy is the fucking best thing since sliced fucking bread if you're one of these guys who's in the 4.5%. It just depends on what the context is. It's not good. It's not bad. It just is. And the best way you can deal with hypergamy or solipsism is to fucking understand it, accept it, deal with it, leverage it for yourself, and then put it into practice. It's not a death sentence. I keep telling guys this all the time. I have this entire fucking essay that's, it's meant, in fact, the title of it is Hypergamy, the Misperceptions, right? One of those is that hypergamy is not a straitjacket, meaning that you might be on the sharp end of the hypergamy stick when you're 25. When you get to be 35 or 36 and you've made the most of your personal potential, now guess what? Hypergamy works fucking great for you. It was sucking for you when you were 25 and you had nothing to show for yourself. But man, hypergamy is fucking awesome when you're 36 years old and you made partner in the law firm, or now you finished your residency and you're a surgeon or whatever the fuck it is. Or you're making money because you fucking stuck to your guns. You did wealth. You know what? You prioritized yourself and your own fucking success. And guess what? Now it's paying dividends as a result. And you know why? Because women are hypergamous. There you go. It's not a straitjacket. Also, the same girl who gets to be at 23 gets to be so selective, and she's at the height of her agency. She's at the height of her fucking power. She's 23. She gets to be 33, puts on a little bit of weight, maybe not a lot. She's not unattractive, but she certainly can't compete with her 33-year-old self. Guess what? Suddenly all of that hypergamy that like kept you from that put her on top of the fucking game, that same hypergamy is now a net deficit for her. Well, is bad or is it good? It all depends on the context. It all depends on the phase of life. There's so many fucking variables. I hate it when I listen to these black pill fucking doomers. Like, oh man, it's open hypergamy. I'll never fucking manage it. Wait, I gotta.
We're never gonna score. We're never gonna score.
That's fucking you. That's fucking you. All right. Jesus Christ. It's not a fucking straitjacket, man. God. More than a man could take, I tell you.
Is it that they just use it as a definitive statement to
describe because they use it for what they use it for their exactly. They use it to sort of excuse or to find some sort of it's because of hypergamy, I'm fucked, everything's fucked.
And describe their actions.
I was born with it. I'm a chin cell. My chin doesn't go where it should, It's like hypergamy is fucking me. Go to the gym, lose that fucking weight, do have some direct control, whatever. Oh, you can't fix my ugly face. I bet I could. I bet I could. I bet I could. I bet there's a lot more that you can do. But you know what? It's you know what it is? It's an excuse for being lazy. It's an excuse for I don't want to do it. I'm gonna go back to playing League of Legends.
Hey,
like you.
I work out.
Yeah. I work out. Talk about the time when a female stumbled upon TRM and said something along the lines of "This is all true." But yeah, that's funny. That is a form of solipsism. That's funny you should say that. I actually used this as an introduction to, I think it was Player's Handbook. I had a guy. I knew a guy who knew a guy. I had a guy who was one of my readers, and he told me this story. I think I was at a convention or something. He came up to me. He says, "My girlfriend found your book. I was reading your book, and she found your book." I go, "Really? What happened?" He goes, "Well, she snatched it from me." She said, "The rational male, rational male." Right. And so let me see that. I'll be the judge of that. She comes back like 3 or 4 days. He said she couldn't put it down. She read it for like 3 days straight, right? And she comes back on a Friday and she tosses it to him. He's on the couch. She's like, "Everything in that book is true, and you shouldn't know any of it." It's just she had a different, but it's true because like women don't want men to. That's the reason why people hate the red pill so much, is because we give away the game. We give them, you know what? The red pill actually empowers men. That's why guys like Galloway are going to hate me. That's why fucking tradcons hate us. Wokesies hate us. Women hate us. Guys who are sort of locked in their sort of, the white knights, guys who are like red pill, blue pill alphas hate us because we give away the game. And if we give away the game, what happens is we empower men to make better decisions for themselves. That's why. If I, for instance, average age of first marriage for women is 30 years old. Average age for men, 32-ish, 31, 32. If that guy at 31, 32 is now educated and understands the nature of the game, and that woman at 30 says, "Shit, I need to get married. Why can't I find a suitable guy?" Or we listen to Scott Galloway and the rest of these guys. A woman becomes the man she wanted to marry, and along comes a high value guy, but he's read my book and he understands the especially preventive medicine, and he's aware of this timeline right here. He's aware of that. Imagine the catastrophic collateral damage of knowing this kind of stuff when you're like, say, 25 years old, and then you get to be 30, 32. And it's like women, like suddenly all these women who wouldn't give you the time of fucking day, they ghosted you. They didn't want to have anything to do with you in college. They're like, yeah, he's on Facebook. God forbid. He's on Facebook. He followed me after high school, whatever the fuck it is. Right. And he gets to that point and he's like, oh, now suddenly all these girls who didn't want to have anything to do with me at 30 years old, they suddenly want to fuck me.
The high school reunion changes.
High school reunion. Yeah. Yep. Or what is it? Oh, I know. I remember what it is. I wrote about this recently. Remember the guy who we were talking about, the guy who the girl, she was 28, he was 28, and he got offended because she said, "Oh, you're not like any of the other guys I would have been a fuck buddy with, or I would have been like, the players that I've fucked in my past. You're not like them at all." And thinking that that's a compliment. She thought that's a compliment because she thought that guy was stupid and didn't know this. He didn't know that. You know this shit. If you know this, then yeah, that's not a compliment. The guys who know this take that as an offense, ladies. And you know why they're pissed off at me? Because I give them the education, and that's why they're fucking offended, right? Oh, it would have been great if it weren't for that meddling Rolo. Let's take the mask off the ghost, right? Yes. Yeah. And so knowing that stuff, knowing is half the battle. What's the other half? Violence. But yeah, so like knowing that stuff is dangerous. That's why that's you might vote for Trump. You might actually have a healthy sense of masculinity if you listen to Rolo long enough. But no, I thought that was interesting because I wrote about this, and if you can read this, by the way, it's my most recent essay on Substack, which is, if you go below the fold, you'll get the actually, Sammy, go grab that and put my Substack ad address in the chat if you would. I'd appreciate that. Thanks, Sam. But I wrote about the guy who got offended by this stuff, and one of the things that I wrote about was I don't know if you've ever seen this. Have you ever watched Friends?
Not that much. But
my daughter loves Friends. I used to watch Friends back in the 90s because I thought it was a good show. I thought it was a good show back then. And then I kind of forgot about it until my daughter rediscovered it when she was like in high school. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, and then I realized what a fucking horror show that. Like, if you look at Friends with a red pill lens, you're like, oh my God, how could we not see this for what it was back then, right? Thank you.
Also, the most unbelievable thing is that they could live in the apartment in
New
York.
The funny thing is like you've got three male archetypes. You've got Joey, who is the alpha male. He's the himbo, right? He's good looking. He's funny because he's stupid, but he's like good looking and gets pussy no matter, in spite of himself. Yeah. Then you got Ross. Ross is the simpering pansy beta, the worst, like doormat beta, blue pill beta. He doesn't understand a goddamn thing, almost a gamma, right? Then you got Chandler, and Chandler's somewhere in between. He's the 20%er, right? So Ross is the 80%er who in no way would ever be able to get with a woman as choices like fucking Jennifer Aniston, right? You know that only in TV does this shit, that romance happen, right? Then you got Chandler, who does get with Monica, but he's the 20%er, and he has to work at it. He doesn't get pussy as easy as Joey. Yeah, he has to have value added. He has to work to get pussy. Yep. He gets pussy, but he has to work to get pussy. Ross gets it just because he's out of pity. Mm-hmm. You know, he gets Rachel. He gets Rachel's pussy out of pity, more or less. And then there's Joey, who just gets pussy in spite of himself, right? Yeah. Okay, so those are all, and until you watch this, it's like it's scary. Now I said that, I go, oh my God, you're the 4.5%, you're the 20%er, and you're the 80%er. And so I'm watching this, and there was this one episode where Ross and Rachel are together, and then they decide to go on a break. We were on a break, remember?
Yeah.
And then they decide, like, okay, if we get to be 30 years old and we're still single, then we'll get married. I go, only in girl world with a laugh track is that fucking funny.
Yep.
Because that is, you want to know, like, and I was reminded of that episode when I was reading that Am I the Asshole Reddit thing, right? And essentially that's what women do with guys today. Like, they will put them in the friend zone. Like the guys that women would put in the friend zone at 22 are the guys that they were hoping will wait until 30 to marry them at 30 years old. I don't want to lose you as a friend. Well, why? Because you'll make such a great husband. Okay, well, why not marry me now? Because I want to wait till I'm 30. I want to go fuck other guy. Basically, he's like, I want to go fuck other guy. The hot guy in the foam cannon party in Cancun on spring break. I want to go fuck those guys, and I want you to wait. And I think that was even the title of the episode. Wait for me until I'm 30.
I'll find the episode.
Get the fuck. Like, who thinks this is funny? This is horror. It is a horror show. I'm gonna go full circle. It's a horror show. It is. It's unbelievable. And they laughed at it, and it was the funniest thing at the time. You know why? Because it was cognitive dissonance. Why not just get married now? And remember, this is in the mid 90s, like 95 through 2000, somewhere in there. I think it was a 5-season run, 6 season,
Yeah, I think it's 5.
something like that.
Yeah.
And we were laughing at it. It's funny. It's comedy. But now, like, we look back on this, we go, oh my God, like, who would not be offended? What guy with any sense of fucking self-worth would not be offended by that? But we laugh at it because we didn't know any better back in the, we didn't have the red pill. We didn't have mass communication like we do now.
Yep.
And it's just absolutely unbelievable. And so that's what kind of got me to thinking about, I wonder if I should just go dig that up. Hang on.
Find the episode for it.
No, I'm just gonna read the last part of that of my essay there. Back to my home here. Hold on, let me go to my dashboard here. Get my posts. Okay, yeah, it's called Marriage in the Friend Zone. And essentially the reason why I called it Marriage in the Friend Zone is because that's really what it's about. Is you're putting, like, ladies, how many women like are expecting a guy to be like when I listen to like the guys who, or the women that Scott Galloway is talking to, or some of the other girls that were in that the previous videos, when I look at them and they go, well, there's no good guys, there's no good men. Yeah, because you expected them to wait for you. You put them in the friend zone in their 20s, and you expected them to build themselves up, be ready for you, to build themselves into better men, to be high value men.
Yep.
And then you're expecting them, and granted, they got to be older than you too. Statistically speaking, they got to be a little bit, at least 3 to 5 years older than you. And you're expecting them to wait. You're expecting them to go, that's okay, go fuck all the guys in Cancun, but you want me to build myself up. I have to prove that I have value. I'm Chandler, right? I got to prove that I have value added. I have to prove that I can persevere. I got to prove my character traits. I got to prove all this stuff. I have to be the guy you want to marry, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
You just have to be hot. You just have to be hot and spread your legs, which is what you're doing anyways from 18 to 28. And now that I'm 30, I was friend zoned by you. Essentially, that's what it is. Yeah. If a woman is saying, "Oh," if she's even joking about, "Oh, if we're single at 30, then we'll get married." Fuck you, we will. I'm gonna go and fuck. And when I'm 30 or 35, I'm fucking the girl who's 22 years old, because apparently those are the guys that apparently older guys are the ones that are getting with younger women.
Yep.
Why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't that be the case? Even Scott Galloway was talking about, these women are getting with older guys. Yeah. You know why? Because they're made. They're made at that point, and those guys can get with them. It's not because they're infantile. It's not because they have weak egos or they're afraid of strong women and afraid of successful alpha females. They're not. They don't want to have anything to do with you because they were put in the friend zone in 20s, and you're expecting them to be to have a friend zone marriage when you get to be 30. And guys who are waking up and they understand it, they of course, understandably get fucking pissed off and they get insulted by that. Yeah, I even had this, what was it? This exchange right here. I'll just show you this. This is from my Substack. If you guys want to come and subscribe to my Substack, I will give you a brief. Is this? I think this is it. Yeah, there we go. The friend zone marriage. This is from my friend zoned marriage thing here. You guys remember this, of course, right? Men would make a good fuck buddy. Men would be both. But the thing is in the 80-25, this is actually how it should look. Men that would, because you got to remember, it's incredibly small, right? You're talking 4.5%, right? Then men that would make a good husband, even smaller. Unattractive men. This is the 80th percentile right here. Okay. And then men that are attractive but might make a good husband or unattractive are in this little area right here. And then the pink one is that men, by the way, this is the smallest subset, because they would make good friends with Ben. They'd be fun to fuck. And they also might possibly be a good husband or a father at some point. That is the smallest. That's I don't even know what the percentage would be, but it would be less than 4.5%. But this was great. This was from a text that I pulled. I only friend zoned you because you're too perfect. That makes no sense. You make a better husband than a boyfriend, and I want to keep you around until the time was right. Wait for me. Okay. If we ever dated and broke up, I'd hate to lose you forever. All girls keep the good ones around until the time is right. Translation: I want to fuck douchebags and bad boys, but I'll start getting uglier. When I start getting uglier, I want you around to start a family with. Okay, this was okay. I'll just read this to you because I thought this was pretty damn good, if I do say so myself. In a classic episode of the 90s sitcom Friends, Ross and Rachel are breaking up, but neither really wants to end their relationship. Ross has an incredible one-itis for Rachel, of course, but Rachel is loath to let Ross go because she worries she'll never find a guy who would be as perfect as a husband as Ross once she's preemptively had her fun with more exciting men who would make a good fuck buddy, okay, i.e. guys who fuck. Ross is firmly in the men who would make a good husband circle, so Rachel needs an insurance policy. They agree that if they are both single when they reach the age of 30, they will marry. The premise of the humor rides on one question: wait for me. The wait for me dynamic is a cliche now. The irony is that it's precisely why our offended would-be husband in the scenario above left the house. Viewed through the red pill lens, the Wait For Me episode of Friends is a horror story for Ross. The dynamic is a principle I detailed over a decade ago called open hypergamy. Between the mid-90s and 2010, women began openly, proudly announcing their innate pluralistic mating strategy: alpha fucks, beta bucks. They need to conceal women's interest in short-term sexual experience and long-term sexual interest in men was destigmatized, not knowing and accepting hypergamy now. Indeed, the future wife in the scenario believed she was complimenting her boyfriend by comparing him to the short-term sexual partners she had been involved with. This illustrates how oblivious women are to open hypergamy. Her naive expectation was that he'd feel honored to be the one she saw as marriage material because he had to wait for her by default. This future wife at 28 was expecting that a compliment like this would seal the deal for her by 30 years old. The hope amongst women is to find a semi-attractive man who, by the time she hits 30, is still unaware of the game he's involved in. Even better if he subscribes to some delusion of masculine honor that absolves her of the worst aspects of her mating strategy.
White knight.
Yes. And here's the money shot: marriage in the friend zone. The obvious problem with the wait for me gambit is that the men who'd make a good husband are never going to be as exciting as the men who'd make a good fuck buddy. And by being a good guy who fucks, it makes him a more memorable sexual experience overall. The guy who a woman friend zones at 22 is the same guy who becomes marriage material when she's 30. And this is the bullet. The bullet our would-be husband dodged by leaving the house. He avoided what I call the friend zone marriage. In some instances, the guy a woman marries was, in fact, friend zoned years before she came to her senses, quote unquote, and agreed to marry her Ross, who dutifully waited her out until 30. There are many high-profile influencers and celebrities who proudly declare their good marriage guy status after telling their story about how their wives were never really into them, or they started as friends until both married into an appreciation for, both matured into an appreciation for each other. Looking at Grant Cardone here, after he attained enough affluence and prestige to offset this guy who'd make a good husband status. Most of these guys make this story integral into their personality brands. Guys who got friend zoned and later married the gal who rebuffed them is grist for the positivity mill. However, celebrities and plebes alike are still effectively in the friend zone throughout their marriages. The fact that a guy would patiently wait for a woman to come to her senses and find him attractive enough to marry after she'd spent the better part of her 20s finding herself with guys who fuck solidifies him as a guy who doesn't fuck. As a husband, he is still in the friend zone. I married my best friend and will never experience a side of his wife that the guys who'd make good fuck buddies did while he waited for her. I know that's brutal, isn't it?
That's brutal.
Brutality.
Ouch.
Brutality. Finish him. So that's the
Forrest Gump archetype.
yes, more or less. That's the Forrest Gump archetype. But anyways, if you guys want to read the rest of that, you can subscribe to me on Substack. There's lots more goodies like that as well. Yeah, finding herself. She found herself with her legs spread. But again, women are going to do what women are going to do, and men are going to do what men are going to do. The problem is like I think, well, just I don't even want to take too much glory for myself here, but as far as this is concerned, the epiphany phase, the transition phase, the security phase, right there, the reason those are named right there, the phases in the middle there, are in accordance with the fact that that's when women are checking out, and they're kind of, well, let me put this up. There you go. They're on the downswing of their peak span years. So as a woman is on her decline, the man is on his ascendancy right there. And I'll tell you this, if women, and again, was this based on some sort of, quantitative science? No, I'll tell you what's funny is like when I first made that graph, again, if you read the original essay, by the way, you can read it in The Rational Male, available on Amazon. It was never meant to be some sort of super serious, diagram of, if people see a bell curve, or they see a graph, they see graph like this, or they see a graph like this, or they see a graph like this. They think there's got to be some sort of qualitative or quantitative research that goes behind that. No, but instinctually, observationally, all this stuff sort of made sense. And I wanted to sort of give sort of like a graphic representation of the ideas and the hypothesis that I was coming up with. Oddly enough, this graph right here has been, and maybe I should just do a dedicated show sometimes. I've had over the years, I put this out in 2012, I think, 2013. I made it to the first book, so it would have been 2012. Over the years, over the last certainly 10, 12 years, I've had people throw similar graphs at me, proving things like, men make their biggest contributions to society or scientists at certain ages. Hell, even Rob Henderson has come up with some stats showing that men hit their marketability, their sexual marketability peak right around 36, 37 years old. And so my hunch came true. A lot of the stuff that people say, oh, you're just pulling this out of your ass. Yeah, maybe when I first put this out, it just seemed instinctually, it seemed like this was about the right, about the right ages and about the right values and stuff like that. But over the last 10 or 12 years, I've had people throw other data at me that verifies this exact graph here. As I said, maybe I should do a Substack or something like that to sort of back it up and justify it. But again, it was never really meant to be super serious to begin with. So anyways, well, that's my story today. It's time to leave you guys. We're almost at the 3-hour mark, and I got to go home and eat. And I know that my dogs need to eat too. Do we have anything else here? Yeah. By the way, Mrs. Doubtfire, don't watch that. Don't. wait, do this one right here. Don't watch Mrs. Doubtfire. Not now. If you watch this show and you have red pill lens, Mrs. Doubtfire, it will give you nightmares. It'll totally give you nightmares. Mrs. Doubtfire is the worst of the 90s. Yeah, it would have been the 90s movies. You have the tragedy of the whole thing is it's Robin Williams who's starring in it in the first place. So you knowing what you know. And then also it is about a man whose wife leaves him for Pierce Brosnan. Yeah. So you have a guy that looks like Pierce Brosnan, and was it Sally Fields or I forget who was
I'll check it.
Forget the chick who was in the thing. Anyways, she gets with Pierce Brosnan, and the guy who is the father of the children looks like Robin Williams, and has to essentially destroy himself or completely basically has to turn into a woman.
Sally Fields,
I was right. Yeah. Turn himself into a woman so that he can be and father his children. Mm-hmm. He has to essentially destroy his own masculinity, become a woman, and an old woman at that.
Yeah, exactly.
So that he can be a part of his children's lives. That right there, Watch this with a red pill lens, and you will be like, that meme where Arnold has his hand like this, and he's like ready to like fight because he's so angry. That's gonna be you if you watch if you watch Mrs. Doubtfire, man. Holy shit! Or Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump's pretty much self-explanatory. It's like, she goes off, fucks a bunch of guys, come back with AIDS, and he's like a millionaire because he's a shrimp boat farmer or some shit like that. Hey, all right, I guess I'll marry you.
And everything.
Unbelievable. And it's funny. It's like it's a love story.
Yeah. It really
and
is.
one best picture.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Same thing with Titanic. Yeah, Titanic is fucking the alpha widow. It's the greatest love story ever told. A best picture 1997 is essentially confirms the alpha widow dynamic. I just work here, man. I just don't get mad at me. Anyways, yes, I love that. I love that meme. He's shaking his arm. He's so angry. That'll be you if you watch Forrest Gump. If you watch Mrs. Doubtfire. Oh, God, I couldn't watch that shit. Are you kidding? We still got to go see Alien. We haven't seen Aliens yet, so we got to. And I was supposed to actually. I shouldn't even. I was going to do this show from Reno because I have to drive to Reno to go pick up a bunch of stuff. I've got to start actually moving some of my stuff, my physical stuff, from Reno down to Las Vegas because I am now a Las Vegas resident.
Ooh,
bravo!
Hell yeah.
Rolo, finally pulled the plug. So I heard that Donovan Sharp now has a place in Reno. So I'm leaving Reno to Donovan while I move down to Las Vegas right now. Somebody's got to watch after Reno. So I'll leave that in Donovan's capable hands. But yeah, I'm now I will be a Las Vegas resident as of October 3rd. That's when we close. So we're good to go.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of I hate moving, man. I absolutely hate moving. I talked to my wife, I counted these things out, and I go, how many times have we moved? In 28 years of marriage, this will be the 19th move we have made. And that's not the moves I've made, like when I've moved my daughter places and I helped other people out and stuff like that. 19 or move my in-laws around, right?
Wow.
19. This will be our 19th personal move in 28 years.
I've only moved twice.
I absolutely, you're right. I think, you know what, you get this. Yes, moving blows. I absolutely hate moving. Absolutely. And that's comes from experience. But what do women want? Who cares? Who cares? That's the Don Draper answer, isn't it? Yeah. Who cares?
We're gonna sell it to them anyway.
Yes, exactly. All right, guys. All right, that's it. I will see you guys next week, probably from Reno. It'll be my last show in Reno. My studio's still up and running and functional there, but I've got to be up there on the weekend, so I'm probably going to do my show from Reno next week, and then I'm going to drive a good port. I have to drive my jet skis down here. That was the main thing. I got to trailer them down here, and just pack as much shit in the back of the Tacoma as I can, and then trailer I've been paying for this parking spot that I'm going to put I got a storage facility where I'm going to put the jet skis. So yeah, I got to do that soon. So I'm gonna, we usually take the jet skis to Lake Tahoe, but you can only take the jet skis to Lake Tahoe like June, July, and August, and then the rest is just too bloody cold. So, but Lake Mead's warmer, so yeah, have some more time to do it. Yep, that's gonna be fun. All right, guys. So that's that. I am also, if you guys are interested in the Reignite program, please hit me up. You can just hit me up on Instagram. You can DM me on Instagram, or you can hit me up on Twitter. Just type Reignite if you are interested in the Reignite program. Is for guys. We're not like kicking people out if they don't want to be in the show. You know, if you're not going to say you can't be in, but it's mostly for 45 to 65-year-old guys sort of reintegrating themselves back into the sexual marketplace, whether that's from a divorce or you just never really in the first place. So we have that coming up. We have some new stuff. We have got an event coming in October, and we've got some other upcoming things. So if you want to be a part of Reignite, just text me or DM me the word Reignite, and then we'll get you on the list so you guys will be part of it. And let's see, what else do we have? Oh, and please go. Yeah, no bears at Lake Mead. Yeah, very funny, James Kilgore. He remembered that. You remember, I almost got eaten by a bear on Lake Tahoe. Fed to her cubs too. Anyways, all right, guys, that's good. I will see you guys next week, and until then, peace out, guys.
Would you do it again? I need to feel you on top of me. It was my first time, but I was just a kid when we met and went to bed. It was my first time. What do you expect from me? I'm breaking up the rules now in the game. I've got some new tools. Please do the same. Time came by and went over like a matchbox stereo. Time to keep my thoughts, now let go. Bound to keep me up all night.
I feel like I just took a bath in battery acid.
But maybe we can fuck again, and maybe things be different. Goddamn, baby, one more again. Won't you put it on me one more again? I need to know if maybe we can fuck again, and maybe things be different. Goddamn, baby, one more again. You could have the best in my life. The best in my life.
Oh, those guys are back!
Now we're fucking in the bathroom, tearing up every wall while I got your hair. While you're screaming my name. She was swinging in the bedroom, whole time stopping and stuffing with her head like she's calling you Kelly.
Oh, gnarly!
Want me? Driving up and down like a pony, turning up my soul, getting nasty, working up and down on your body. Want me? Driving up and down like a pony, turning up my soul on your body. Baby, we'll get down to it all night. Maybe we can fuck again, and maybe things are different. Goddamn, baby, one more again. Won't you put it on me one more again? I need to know if maybe we can fuck again, 'cause maybe things are different. Goddamn, baby, one more again.
The Sitting Podcast has been a production of the Rational Mail. All rights reserved. 2024 registered trademark. Go look it up. Don't steal my stuff.
Hey, y'all.
That's nasty. It is nasty, right? Isn't it nasty? Ugh.
Maybe we can fuck again, and maybe things are different. Goddamn, baby, one more again. Won't you put it on me one more again? I need to know. Maybe we can fuck again, and maybe things are different. Goddamn, baby, one more again. You could have the best in my life.
FBI, open up!
All right, all right, all right.
God wants you to have the baby.